Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Today, we're reading chapters 19 through 21 of Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn.
But before we get into all of that, let's take a moment to reflect upon what happened previously on Wizard Team. Last episode, we covered Bree waking up in a room with William and Max, which would sound like an interesting setup, but actually is very because she has no memory of her last couple days. She thinks she's on the same day as she has been for the past 3 days. They are there to take her to the Regents. Max has to take a moment away, and that's when Bree puts her up to game how everything's been going, and helps her to remember all the interrogations by giving her a shot of pain, which he's perturbed by, but immediately ready to take care of. When she's in the room with the Regents, they tell their findings to each other, basically ignoring Bree's even though she is the Scion. She's girl, that's just a title at this point. And they tell her that both her father and Alice are being watched, and that Alice has been mesmered and is no longer part of the order. They also decide that Bree will be kept at the Institute while they continue running the order and keeping everyone aware of Camlon being imminent, that Bree is Arthur, and anything that actually is true, basically. When they decide, oh, Bree, what input would you like to give to this? That's your life after all. But your options are die or be feeling like you want to die. Those are your two options. And so they can't actually kill her though, because they do need her blood. So they're gonna figure out making her, it's a whole disgusting line of thought there that I don't want to go into. But yes, in the end, they going ahead with their plan, which is to keep Bree locked up in the Institute cage. But as soon as Bree figures out that her food is the reason how the ability is the reason why they're able to keep her abilities on lock, she decides to not eat. But as soon as an appetizing meal comes through, she's like, I'm going to go back on my charge to not eat. She carves into the steak only to find an earpiece and puts it into her ear after wiping, everything down. And she's like, oh, someone is talking to me and they're telling me a strategy to get out of this place. She follows their voice into the night. And what does she find? Alice in a Jeep, ready to pull off immediately.
Bum, bum, bum.
We need if that wasn't trademarked, we could have put Mission Impossible.
Or like a thunder, or like a thunder, or lightning thunderstorm, like it's a noise.
It needed the super spy
music.
We'll do what we can. Okay.
We don't. It's fine.
Chapter 19. So Bree sees Alice hanging out of the Jeep and is like, whoa, Jeepers.
Sorry. I'm sorry. That was a missed opportunity last episode to Jeepers. Not title that beep beep, who got the keys to my Jeep.
Aw.
I know. Ugh. One day that'll
will be quick. So Bree gets into the Jeep with Alice, dressed in tactical gear, looks and sees Jillian, who helped train Bree for the trials in Legendborn. She was a combat trainer. Samira Miller is like, you did great, and Bree recognizes her voice, and that's who guided her out with the earpiece. And then Lisa Burke is driving the Jeep and getting them out. This is not at first I was picturing what is that, the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the the off-roader that we all think of with the little roll cage. Mm-hmm. This is my brother's Jeep that has the 3 seats and is just a big honking bus.
Yeah,
because it's got.
I had that as a rental car earlier this year, and I was like, this is a lot. I was just
Can I
like,
just say too, because my brother
I do not need to be
my
driving
brother
this
loves
car.
to be like, hey, can you drop us off at the Padres game? Because I live walking distance to Padres Stadium. They could just park in my neighborhood and then walk I think it's like 5 or 6 blocks. But no, I gotta drop them off and then come back and park the car in my neighborhood. So I'd be driving that Jeep. And I get it, you don't want to carry your kid
It's
5 or 6
huge.
blocks, but like
Yeah, no,
I shouldn't be allowed. This is not a licensee car.
I straight up drove it. I drove it for a week, and then I was like, "Look, Mom, there's no reason why I need to be driving a car this big. That gas is crazy." I was like,
Yeah.
let me use the commuter car because
Like
this isn't gonna work.
Do a swip, a flop, a swap.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
but we should also point out too that Samira is a black leash.
Yes, we should point that out. I didn't point that out in my notes.
Yeah, which is like we get a little bit into it, I think, later, but like there are questions about that because she's not a
scion. She was a
she's not a scion. She's a squire. So there's a different sense of like choosing to be a part of this versus not necessarily.
But all of these, I believe, all of these lieges had been called because like Samira has like
I think except
Jillian.
Jillian.
Yeah, because like but Bree like notes that like Samira and Lisa, they have grays, and they kind of just look like they're aging but are not old. like they're aging in a way that like doesn't actually correspond with.
But also, how old are they? Like, are we reading this like from the lens of 16-year-olds? Because like, are they like 34?
Well, they're like
in
like
their 30s. But I'm not saying no. But like they're like prematurely gray, and they have, well, I don't know. Some people. I have a friend turned like fully gray in his 20s, and we called him Silver Fox, and he was a Silver Fox, and it worked for him. So it's not that you can't go gray in your 20s and 30s. It's just, I think the way in which Bree kind of talks about it is like there are signs of aging that don't even really like match with even their age,
their general age. Yeah. I think their general age, and I also think like I think there's kind of an implication that Samira is a little older than Lissa because of the amount of grays in her hair. Like, so it's like a thing that it, as you know, like she's, as they get closer, because what is it, 35 is like the age of abatement. So like as they get closer, they're like,
so it says
these like different.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it. Sitting at Jillian's left, directly behind me, is a black woman with short salt and pepper hair. Her brown face has barely there smile lines and soaring cheekbones. She might be in her early 30s, only a few years older than the driver, but her hair color would indicate otherwise. So that's where it's like, yeah, and then Samira, when Bree says, "Oh, you're all lieges," Samira says, "Did the early grades give it away? Took you a minute." So, and actually what gave it away is that like Lissa has a patch on her jacket that's the line of Durant, and Samira's jacket there's a one-winged falcon of Bedivere. So they just, they got their insignias on. I think it's like interesting because they are still like they're zooming, like getting away from the institute, right? And so they're having this like conversation, and it's kind of a continuation of what we saw where Bree is trying to ask questions when Samira is trying to guide her out of the institute, and she's like, "We don't have time for this. Like, just let's go." So Bree is trying to like kind of catch up, but also figure out what's happening. But they're still mid getaway, like they're not out of the woods yet. So Alice is,
and she's also like making demands in a way that's like, you haven't even said thank you yet. And I know that there's a lot going on, so it's not like, it's understandable in some ways, but in other ways, she's just like, and what about this? And what about this? And what about this? It's like, girl, take a breath and
Yeah.
realize that you just got out of this like really crazy situation, you know?
And
Like,
it's so
take a
funny
second
because
first.
they literally basically are like, you're not you when you're hungry, have a Snickers, except it's like a protein
Yeah.
bar. They shove at her and some water. And Bree is asking Alice how she got there because Tacitus supposedly wiped her memory. And then Alice is like, well, he tried to. And then she like recaps the night of the rite from her perspective and says like as soon as the mesmer was over, her memories came flooding back. She knew that wasn't supposed to happen, but pretended until they released her. Bree's like, how did that happen? Jillian's like, that's what I want to know. And Alice is like, I don't know, but Bree can tell, like, oh, you do know, but you don't want to say in front of the lieges, which I think is like, if I have to like MVP early and one person, it's Alice, because there's a couple of times in her recap in which she catches herself or she's just kind of like very up on game and like the adrenaline and stuff she doesn't lose focus or give away too much. Like there are certain times when like Bree, understandably, but like there's a lot going on and then she kind of like gives away a little bit too much. And it's kind of what we talked about too, where like no matter what the Regents were doing to her, Bree wasn't giving away the root crafters. Like it just wasn't ever going to be a thing. It's kind of like that with Alice. Like Alice is like, yeah, these lieges saved me. They saved you. We're in the midst of trying to save everybody else, but they still don't need to know what I know. They don't need to know all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also before that, the fact that like, well, we've gotten there, right? Where she, okay, no, we're not gotten there.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Okay. So, I also want to say that like Bree is like, oh, you know how you broke this mesmer, but you don't want to say, and we never find out.
Oh yeah,
that's
okay. That was the next thing.
Like,
that's what I was gonna say.
We don't ever come back to this. I mean, yes, things just keep getting worse and worse, but like there are some quiet moments where we could come back to this.
But I also think though, like it's a very clever, like subtle-ish way to have it mentioned, have it never come up again, and then have like the way that Alice ends this book. And if you're like keeping up with it, you're like, oh, something is happening
Tallying
with
up
Alice. That's
the clues or something is happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can kind of like guess what it is, but it still hasn't been said like
it's been clarified. For me, it felt like a fake out. Having the first time I read it through, I was like, this is a fake out. Like they kept giving me things, but then I never came back to it. So then it's like, are you trying to imply that there's some like Alice has powers? But I'm like, okay, but then like it's like kind of like in was it the last Spider-Man movie where Ned has the sling ring, and I'm like, okay, y'all were gonna tease us with the fact that Ned had latent abilities to be a sorcerer. Like y'all was gonna like we just hey hi, I have a ring. Like what's happening? I'm like for Alice, I was just like, okay, are you faking us out? Like what is happening? Like
Alice, there's something going on with Alice. Alice got powers, and I think that
there's
like
something
going
on with her, but I also think that
can I give you my headcanon? Sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think not that Alice is like a Cambion, but I think that Alice and her family they have powers in a certain way, and they are like their families are friends because of Sel's mom and Bree's mom, and like Alice may not know, kind of like the spies. Like you've seen like the Americans or whatever, when it's like Russian spies get sent to America and have to blend in, and then they like are put together as like a family, and then they just have kids, and the kids are like, oh shit, I'm American, and you're like, no, actually, you were just a ploy. You're a spy ploy, so that we can blend in better. I think that's kind of what's going on.
What if
Alice doesn't know?
What if Alice is a Morgaine and the Morgaines are not who everyone has made them out to be?
What
if the Morgaines are actually looking out for Bree?
I definitely think the Morgaines are not who they
I don't think they are who everyone says they
are made out to be.
I can say I don't think that she's a Morgaine because Morgaines are basically Merlins, and we would know that.
Yeah, I think Bree. I think Bree would be able to sense that.
I don't know that's true.
And
every minute it's like a red herring moment. It's like, is it a Morgaine? And I'm like, you wouldn't? Would you be able to?
Or maybe the Morgaines are not all Merlins. Like that could be the thing. But like the way that the Morgaines were
like they
explained
have
to us, yeah, like maybe they've grown beyond just being
Merlins
who defected.
See, and my theory is much less. I mean, much less like broad, I guess. Like I mostly was just like that moment when Bree heals Alice. Or really like has Jesse do it. Like that was what for me that went because Jesse goes, I can't remember what she says. And my book is too far away.
So we are in chapter 48 of Legendborn. Bree's body turns hot, a new presence stretches beneath the skin. Jesse, a healer 3 generations back. And she says, please. And so Jesse says, my healing and your immunity, maybe. No herbs on this side, so you'll have to do. And then red mage flame erupts from her palms and flows over Alice's face and hair. Jesse won't let her pull away. And all I can do is watch with horror as my root, my ether cascades down my friend's body and soaks into her skin. Then Jesse releases me, the flame snuffed out. Instead of herbs, Jesse used Bree's own power and energy. And then Jesse had said her healing power was Bree's immunity, maybe. So no herbs on this side, so that Bree is like the herbs, basically. So Bayana's thinking that the immunity, that Bree's immunity to mesmer and stuff gets infused into Alice forever.
Yeah. And maybe not intentionally though, like I don't, but to me in my head, I was like, she infused something, like gave her the ability to resist mesmer. And then that when like we get to the end and she's in that like magical coma, that also, I don't know exactly, but has something to do with that. But I like your theories too. Like I feel like it could also be a mix of those things.
Your
and like
theory
even
makes
if her
I don't know if I like stories where that happens. Maybe that's what my bias against that kind of thought process is. I'm like
where
like someone gets a powers because someone else just kind of flew off of them, like it was like radiation. It just like radiated into another person. Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's I don't know that it's necessarily like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's also possible that Alice already had like a background for it, like, you know what I mean, or like an affinity for it beforehand, and it just needed to be triggered.
But
you know what I mean?
Feels like
not
Marvel,
necessarily
like the
that.
MCU's like.
No, I think that
story, like they're.
You know what? It reminds me of.
I'm just saying that's why I have like a bias against them. So I'm like, I don't buy this. Mutants are mutants. Don't you dare. I just get annoyed.
No, but they're not though. That's the thing though, is that ether can be manipulated by anyone. Like that's the kind of the whole point, is that it's it's the substance that is like, it exists on the earth, and there are different cultures that use it in different ways and for different things. And so I think in this way it could be something that like in Alice's history, like maybe she has family or people like that she's descended from who were using it, and then that way she has like an affinity for it that then gets triggered, especially then when she's like in a world where she's learning about it. But I think the idea though for this world is really anybody can
wear the mask,
because most of these people don't other than the scions, like even in the order, like most of those people have to be like, you know, they take that oath and then they can see it, but they're not there's something that triggers them to allow them to use and manipulate and to see it, right? So that's kind of the case for everyone. Except for the scions, because they have it bound to their, and Bree, well, I guess she's a scion because they already have it bound to their like their spirit blood or whatever.
I like your idea because what it gives me is not MCU, but like transfusions. Like, you know, when like if someone had, I just watched this episode of, I think it was like FBI or whatever, but someone had a bone marrow transplant. And so then when you get a bone marrow transplant, you can absorb the other person's DNA. And so it changes your DNA. And that's what it kind of gives me, is that like basically they did like, instead of a blood transfusion, they did like a magic transfusion. And so there's like traces of that, of Bree's DNA in Alice. I personally like my theory, because I like spy dead drop movies and things like that, and like the big conspiracy of like,
I feel like it'd be cool if Alice's family had a bigger role in the story,
the way
though.
in
So
which they
I
grow
feel
up
like
as like childhood best friends who continue to be best friends, and Alice's, like, even when they're like fighting and whatever, like Alice is just like, yep, you're the scion of author, I guess I'm now a vassal. Like, it just, again, I am not a ride or die. I would be like, I am here for you, buddy. I ain't joining this shit, buddy, old pal of mine. But like, when you need a break, when you need to step away, my door is open.
Let me know.
I would be Mariah. I'm like, I'm gonna be with the root crafters. So whenever anytime you need root crafter help, I'm here. Yeah, anything else? I'm so sorry, the white folks ain't gonna get me. Not me. Not me.
Right?
But also, I'm gonna, like, I think the first time I read it, I don't know why. I think it's because like Celtic stuff automatically kind of, it's the same region of thought as like Fae. So I was like, is this gonna become a marriage of different magics within this world because of Merlin Celtic magic, Druid magic, and like the relationship that has with Fae magic?
Robyn's very excited.
If we have Fae in this world and elemental magic,
I mean, I could see Fae being a part, like being considered,
I might cry.
Demons, or like a part of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that demonology.
Yeah, they've just flattened it all down.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah. If we get elemental magic, though.
Okay, we should move on.
Shit. Okay, fine. But just opened up the
Fae. I think there's like a part of like partial like wizard team discussion, like where we could do like maybe like a bonus episode on just like theories, like just theories.
Yeah.
We just like, just sit and talk about.
Yeah, we definitely need to do that.
The hard thing about it is that we have
especially
because
we're at
subject sometimes, because sometimes you don't think about a theory until you're in the middle of a thing.
Yeah,
you're in it. Yeah.
Okay. So. Oh. Okay. Wait.
Take a breath.
So Alice recounts how there was this loud boom, like a bomb going off, and then Alice and Bree, well, Alice is like, I wonder if the root, and then she stops herself, and then Alice and Bree have this like unspoken conversation with their eyes about the root crafters, and if they're okay. And then Alice is like, after that big boom, William gave Alice Jillian's number and told her to run. And that's how the Legions came into play. So she runs straight into Tacitus. Tacitus tries to mesmer her. The mesmer doesn't hold. And then she calls Jillian. Jillian asks around, does some digging, and then they figure out that they need a rescue plan. And Bree, very understandably, is like, but y'all are in the order. And Samira this is when you know, like, Samira is black and has had or not that you know Samira is black, but like that this is like when you have like the sense that Samira has had a different relationship being in the order, as
similar
like,
experience though.
Like a similar experience to Bree, like where it's like they have a different relationship with their place in the order, because she says very kind of firmly, we are of the order, but we are legend born, and our allegiance is to each other, which is like, it is not to the order TM, it's not to this big system, it's to like the people who are putting their lives on the line, basically, the actual legend born.
And I think that that's really interesting too, like coming off of that chapter when Bree is talking to the regents and
Mhm.
how we talked about how you can kind of see how they pull the strings and how they really are the like power, like hold the power in the order. Um and that moment where Bree's kind of like when they're walking through the institute and she's realizing like just the trappings of like tradition and like myth and like all of these things to keep the Legendborn, just to keep them bought into the bought
To the
into the
bullshit.
like legend of it all, and into yeah, like make them feel like they're doing all this for glory and all this kind of stuff, right? But then you're looking at the lieges who were indoctrinated into all of that. Now they're on the other side. You see how modern their whole little getup is, right? They turned like turned these kids into
A
soldiers and
paramilitary.
then like shortened their lifespan, and then are basically like, all right, now you're out here like and you're still fighting for us without your powers, without the same kind of like
Protections.
protection, but also the glory of it all, right? And you're just like also watching your friends die in a lot of different ways, but then also from abatement, and watching how the regents and the order in general aren't really like at this point you're disposable. So it's kind of interesting to kind of see lieges, right? Like Legendborn who are like post their kind of like prime years or whatever, and are now a lot more disillusioned, and like their strongest relationships are with the people that they went through this with, and so it makes a lot of sense for them to be more loyal to each other and then to the other Legendborn, even if they weren't in the same generation or whatever.
But it also, to me, it says something to me too about like being of the order and of the Legendborn, where the regents are also Legendborn, right? Like they come from these lines, whether or not because Jillian wasn't called,
but they weren't
he wasn't.
but they weren't awake. They weren't in the actual line. They were like heirs, but they were never in the
Oh,
main. Yeah, they're from those lines, but they're not.
They didn't serve.
They were never lieges. They didn't serve.
oh,
Because even the ones who didn't get awakened served for
yeah,
the time that they were eligible to be
yeah.
awakened.
Okay, well then forget what I was saying, because I was thinking that every regent served at some point and then just decided that they were going to like, even if they were never awakened, they were going to like they were going to take the political route and try to amass power. But what you're saying is that like they are kind of like the Order of the Rose and all of these like peripheral
Second
people,
sons.
yeah, who amass power in a different way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I get why, because what's his name, Lord Davis gives that, but even he wasn't, because I feel like even he like he definitely has I think he learned the same lessons that these lieges did. He just took a different approach to it.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's real. He was all up in his head. He's real big headed as well. Yeah, verbose. But yeah, he's very prideful and like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
there's also that.
He decided that he was going to be a liege
self-absorbed,
who amasses power, as opposed to just continues to be a
one
foot
who
soldier.
looks out for his.
Yeah.
Right. But he betrayed his own king's
Exactly.
mage while he was while he actually was the Legendborn or whatever. So, or Crown Scion. So yeah, he's
a special case.
And I think it's clear too, there are moments like in these couple of chapters where they talk about like the lieges who are loyal to Bree. So it's not like all the lieges are on Bree's side, or like they all
because
are on the
Tor is
same
also
page.
a Legendborn, but you would say that she is
Right.
of the order. You know what I mean? Like she is
Exactly. 100%.
And they are very clear about like their numbers, who they can like kind of trust and stuff, which we see more of as Bree. Because like I didn't write this in my notes, but Bree asked about the lieges that are watching her father, and I think it's Samira, but one of them, or maybe Jillian, is like, there are people, we've made sure of that. So like they're able to kind of, they're like you said, like they're the foot soldiers still, like they're no longer active, but they're still serving and they're still in service and they're still being sent out on missions and being chosen to spy against their own people or their own, you know. There are lieges that are helping in the hunt for Nick. Some of those lieges are aligned with Jillian and Samira and Lissa and this group who are very clear about where their loyalties lie and like who they actually answer to. And this is like in stark contrast to the Mage Guard, or at least some of the Mage Guard that we see, who are oath to serve Bree, but they answer to the Regents, right? And someone like Max very clearly made the choice of answering to the Regents over Bree, and in doing what they want instead of what Bree wants. So, and they use those loopholes and all that other stuff to do that, but it's very clear like where their loyalties lie. So Bree is demanding that they go back for William and Sel, in a way that is like you said earlier, like, calm down, have a Snickers. You're not you when you're hungry. Like,
she's on a high key, like 100. And like, I'm like, even when you're malnourished and disoriented and unclear about where you are in life, here you
too much time with Sel.
She's loyal, man.
I'm like, that's a level of like trying to be on top of things that I don't know that I would have in that moment. I to be honest, if I'm disoriented and I'm hungry, I'm angry.
Well, my thing is that
like I get angry real easy.
My thing is like, stop, figure out, not even like you're disoriented, but like figure out what's going on before you start
demanding
like,
things.
They had this whole extraction plan for you. Alice is like explaining to you that William gave them the number, so William knows who to trust and who not. You know what I mean? Like it, like we talk about like the duality of William, in which like he is aware of the politics and the like grosser parts of the Regents and the Order, but at the end of the day, he believes that everyone is working to like save once-borns and to save the world from the demons. And so he is like right now shocked that they kidnapped them and were, taking away their powers and basically imprisoning them. That shocked him, but he also knew that like when something wasn't right, that of everyone in the Order, he trusts Jillian. Like he there are levels to William's trust in this system. And while not anymore, but in Legendborn at least, while it seemed like he had a trust in the system overall, it was not as deep as his trust in Jillian. And there are people that he knows he can count on, and who he would who he would put his life in their hands over others who are all, Legendborn or in the Order. So
I also think I will say Bree's, it's hard because like, for one, they are being very vague about whether or not they're saving William and Sel, but it also makes sense because they're in an active extraction. The other two are also active, like being actively extracted, but also they don't know the status of those extractions, if it's actually like going to work. So they're just kind of like, we're doing what we can. They're trying to like hedge it, and she's like, they're like, we're doing what we can, and she's like, well, what is it that you can do? We need to go now. And it's like, girl, you are, first of all, the first step,
you're the damsel.
Let's worry about what's happening in this car in this moment. Let's worry about right here.
You are Nick in this scenario. You are being saved.
You are Nick.
You're the damsel right now, and I need you to be.
You're not because you actually can't do nothing.
Yeah, let's play your main
characters.
Right now.
I think that's
main characters. I just want to say
she doesn't know. Like she wants to know so much. She wants to be like aware of everything right now, and it's like, girl, She doesn't even know that she wants to be aware.
It's not only
She
that
wants
to be aware.
to be like
She
in
wants to
control
lead the
of her
charge.
friends being okay. Like she wants to be
I
okay.
don't know
with
if she
her.
wants to lead the church. She wants to be involved in
She wants to be
involved in the rescue.
But I think
you're
where she is in her
currently
head right now because she
being
wasn't
rescued.
involved in planning her own rescue. She didn't have they told her what to do. She was at their behest. She was annoyed by that. She did not like that. And then when she finished, she got in the car. They're like, don't even worry about that. She's like, y'all haven't told me anything. Like it's like an immediate reaction because she's already annoyed and not being told anything about getting out of there in the first place. So I think she's in this place of like, just let me know. Like let me like I think
because she's had this loss of control.
She thinks she needs something else. Like she needs awareness, but
it's also like it's also a very because I just was reading this other book. It's such a main character thing to want to be involved in something, to want to know, to want to call the shots, to want to, and like, so it's not, and I'm not even saying that in a bad way. It's just a funny thing to watch where you're like, girl, in this moment, you actually need to focus on you. And also she just in general, like this whole time has not really been
focused on her,
on
the task at hand.
And I think part of it is her wanting to like, caring about her friends and caring about like what happens to them and their well-being, but it's 100% a procrastination.
No, it's a let me put y'all on some therapeutic game that I get told about myself all the time. It's an anxiety thing as well. She just went through 6 days where she had no control, absolutely none. Yeah. And so her response and her trauma response is to control everything. And to also blame herself. If she didn't do something, then it's not that like these forces beyond her control, like something happened to William and Cell because of forces beyond her control. It's that she failed them. And so she had control. She just didn't do what she needed to do. So she doesn't feel untethered and unmoored. And not that my therapist listens to this podcast. I hope not. But if she does, what's up, doctor?
But also it's funny because it's like, you're like, look at it at work. Look at you.
I do be listening.
You're like, I'm getting
I'll be listening. I don't always be putting it into action, but I'll be listening.
It don't go out of one ear and out of another.
It's percolating. You got to process. You're processing.
But I think funnily enough, it's easier to apply it to Bree as she applies her feelings.
Okay, Porshèa. Calm down.
Get a little meta there.
Moving on. So I think what's also really funny about this, it's exactly what you were saying, Bayana, is like they are actively in Bree's extraction, but they're also actively in William and Cell's. And so they tell her they're taking care of it, but Cell is in a shadow hold, which is harder to get to. And like, I could see how she doesn't get this, but like what I'm feeling is that in the same time Samira was in Bree's ear guiding her out, like Jillian or Lissa was in William's ear guiding him out, but he just goes to a different Jeep, like, and they split up, right? Because you're trying to they're trying to outrun but also deal with the mage guard. So Samira says they used a supersonic bomb to disable the mage guard. And they get a phone call from Ophelia, it's just this name, but that the mage guard have like recovered, found the extraction point, and they're assuming they have about 13 minutes before the mage guard catches up to them. So they have like a 13-minute head start. And so they're back to like chill out and let's get out of here. And then
I just want to spend a moment of like, I mean, we're going to get there to a deeper, even more information, but I just, even as I was reading this, I was like, so much respect for the Liege network where they, like, they planned out not only how to disable the mage guard, but how to disable the mage guard in a way that would play into what they needed to do when it came to extraction and build out multiple extraction points and timing for those extractions, with people not only running the extractions, but also being informants, finding informants that would keep them up to date with what was happening with the extractions as they were happening. And then also had an exit strategy plan, what to do with the exit strategy plan, also how much timing they had for that exit strategy, then what they could present to the scion, the uncrowned scion, as potential. Like, they really sat and made multiple, and I want to.
And this
it's
is
literally special ops.
It's the region.
Special ops.
Yeah.
It's, you know what I mean?
It's all this training, and now it's blowing up in the face of the Regents.
Yeah, they've created this paramilitary, but never once did the Regents think that paramilitary could be used against them. And they also, you can see in this, in the same way in which they like underestimate or overestimate their own importance, they also overestimate like the Mage Guard versus the Lieges, right?
Yeah, like magic versus just practical ability.
Yeah, and I think it's Lark who says, which comes in handy in a bit, but when Lark is taking Bree to the right, he mentions that like Lieges scare him more than some mages, like especially like the and this is why, because like
because it's also like they have spent a lot of time around mages, especially the ones who used to have, like, honestly, not even. There's some who didn't ever get awakened. So, like, Jillian, for example, who have had to fight like this the whole time. And then there's the ones who did get awakened, and they're on, like, limited time. So they're like, what do they really have to, like, not what do they have to lose, but, like, they can be a little more reckless, I think.
It's
or hard, you know what I mean, or like hardcore. They're not.
Yeah, they are very aware of their own mortality, which makes it makes them a little bit reckless, but it also makes them less scared. When you're like, if I'm gonna die sitting on my couch versus like I'm gonna go out doing good, right? I think the thing that's really interesting, especially with like Samira, who came up with the like disabling plan, is the idea that they have thought about how to take on a mage, right? Like, and partially like, they take on demons, so
and probably like Morgaine as well.
Has anyone seen Morgaine?
Not that they have taken on Morgaines, but that they maybe are thinking about it because they have powers that are like gremlins. Like, not that they necessarily have run into any Morgaines.
but it's like they have these like it's I don't like to bring up this superhero who I say superhero in asterisks because he's not really a superhero. He's just a billionaire with a need for therapy. Yes. He has these like portfolios on everyone about their weaknesses, and like he has like surveilled like his allies, his enemies. Like he got Superman, he got a portfolio on him and like how he could beat him, right? That's kind of what these lieges in particular give me. It's like we have gathered intelligence and thought through every possible person that we would come up against, and
but they're also not coming into it cocky. Like they definitely know, like we have a time window and we just gotta meet it. But they're also efficient,
right?
Like they're not, there's no wasted
time. And they're
time.
using all of their resources. And here's like the thing that is really admirable too, is that so Bree and William have been gone for about 6 days, right? 3 days of them interrogating Bree, and then 3 days of her in that holding thing, waiting for Erebus to come back. Assuming that Alice calls Jillian the same day as the right after Tacitus releases her, they put together this plan within like 6 days, also knowing that Erebus is, you know what I mean? So they're also tracking Erebus's movements and when is like the right window in which to like set this in motion. At no point, and this is a petty point for me, but it's also important. I'm not going to say at no point because it happens off page, but we don't have any waffling about whether or not Bree is in real danger and they should extract her, or at least the waffling doesn't take as long as them goddamn Regents and like how Jonathan
the waffling
Davis
doesn't make the plan not happen. The plan is
Right.
happening and it's executed well. There's
Yes.
no like soft footing around actually
Yeah.
getting to the point. Yeah.
And there's no like we've heard your claims, you know, like the Regents were doing with Bree and how Bree became the crown scion, right? They're like, we're trusting Alice, who is a fake vassal, but you know.
But also, like, there's no way that like William would have given Alice the
Right.
number without thinking something like really bad was happening. You know what I mean? Like, they know William. They know like the circumstances under which he's within the order. So they know, if they don't trust Alice, they trust William.
They trust William, right? Yeah. And it's like, but it's also like you are just trusting. Like Alice is like, I got your number from William, and like that's what they have, right? It's just interesting too that like they go into this plan and they're saying like, you need like, we have about 13 minutes. Like this is all very timed, knowing or thinking about like what the Mage Guard can do. And they're like, there's a lot of balls up in the air, but like, even though they're not answering all of Bree's questions, they're in this Jeep running from the Mage Guard, and they're giving her as much as they can. And they're giving, and like Alice is like the one really like running this like recap and this what's happening. But the lieges are being like, you know, this is where we're at. This is our time down. Like, you know what I mean? And again, very cinematic. The whole like phone call is like, we have about 13 minutes. And they're like, throughout 10 minutes, 3 minutes, like just kind of counting down and keeping them up. So they pull up to this airstrip, and there's a private jet waiting with the pilot, who is Ophelia. They sprint to this plane. Alice and Bree start like laughing and hugging each other, like, oh my God, I can't believe we made it. And then a curtain opens and it's William, and they're like, William! Because he was being extracted at the exact same time. It was all happening at the exact same time. So William has Bree's mom's charm bracelet and the Pendragon necklace, which I think is like, I just love him because it's
William is a man after my own heart, because like all the things that he's been doing, the thing with Alice and everything too, but then you not only are you giving a girl jewelry, like thank you, sir, but also it is her. It's like these are very sentimental things to her. These aren't just like, he made sure even under duress, the stress, and all the crap that they were pulling on him at the Institute, he was like, I'm gonna make sure my girl gets her jewelry.
Yeah. Like, I always see her wearing this charm bracelet. I'm gonna hold on to this. I don't care. Let me pick this up. It's a little banged up. I don't care. I'm gonna hold on to it.
I know she got these feelings for Nick. I'm gonna make sure she gets this Pendragon coin back. On chain.
And it's just like, to me, it's like William is the consummate healer, like we've talked about. You know what I mean? Like he cares about the physical, but also the mental. And when they heard, like Alice says, when they heard that boom at the right, he was like, something is wrong, something is up. And he had already, you could kind of tell that he'd already had this like nagging, this doesn't seem right, possibly from this whole month of just like silence and waiting, just sit and wait type of thing. Where he's like, this seems off, or this isn't how I would do it. There's probably a lot I don't know, but it's suspicious.
He doesn't know enough.
Yes.
That's the thing. He's like, I should know more, and then what I don't know is more than what I should know, and that's giving me red flags.
Yeah.
And like, I'm a smart person. I feel like we should be doing more. It shouldn't be just sitting around, like waiting, right? Like there should be more happening. I don't know. Maybe there's more happening that we don't know about, but I feel like we should know about it since we have the crown scion, right? Like, we should be more in the loop than we actually are. So he's had these like niggling suspicions. And so that boom at the right was enough to be like, Alice, take this number. Like, something is up. I don't know what. It could be fine, but I'm going, like his brain goes directly to worst case scenario, right? And then that's also part of like him having her jewelry is like, something's up. I'm assuming he gets the same kind of meal and an earpiece and being told to like run, right? But in a different route to keep everyone going. Like his extractions probably mirrors Bree's a little bit, but he's like, if I'm escaping, I hope to God Bree's escaping because she's more important than me, right? They're very aware of their like expendability and hierarchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
everyone except for Bree.
Except for Bree, yes. But in William's thought process, it's like, this isn't going to be, oh, we're free and then things go back to normal. Like, we're just going from one unknown to a different unknown, and Bree needs as much emotional support as well as like physical, mental support. So I'm going to make sure, even though I'm running, like Bree's like, I got my shoes on. William's like, I got my shoes and I got my girl's stuff. Like,
right, but like again, William has had William has had his facilities about him longer than Bree has, so she hasn't even been able to think about where her stuff is because her brain has not been able to have like to just sit and like ruminate on things really. Whereas William is like, they let him sit and like ponder, you know?
Yeah, and I'm not saying any of that to be like a comparison between William and Bree. It's just more like about how William's brain works in the sense of like, oh, it seems like we're about to get out of here, but I need to make sure that like I grab onto the stuff that's going to help. Like, in reality, the things that you need, right? Like, you need your shoes, you want to have some weapons, right? The things that you grab in like an emergency, a lot of times, and what you see this a lot with like people who lose like their houses and like natural disasters and stuff, they lose the pictures and the like small, like the keepsakes, because in that moment of like emergency, you're just grabbing the essentials and going. But in William's brain, like, these pieces of jewelry are essentials to Bree's mental. So I'm giving you the Marshawn, take care of your mentals, take care of your chicken, or what does he say? Your paper? No, chicken. He says chicken. I don't know. Marshawn, my best friend. Take care of your mentals.
You know more than me. You're his best friend.
I know.
I only interact with him on occasion. I'm not his bestie.
I know. I am his bestie, and I forgot the actual quote, but it's something like, I know take care of your mentals is in there, but I just can't remember if he says chicken or paper. But it's basically take care of your brain and take care of your money. That's the gist of it. So they're hugging. Ophelia, one of the legions, is like, okay, y'all need to get ready for takeoff, but we have one more car coming. But like, when this car comes, we out. Like, so sit down, put your seatbelt on, going. They don't do that. They go and look out the window. And they see a sports car pull up, and a blurry figure speeds to the back, and Bree and Alice are like, oh no, it's a mage guard. They found us. Dun dun dun. And that is the end of chapter.
Tracy is so irritating for that particular cliffhanger.
Seriously.
I like the dramatics. This feels like
No, I love it. I'm not like mad, but every time I read it, I'm just like,
I allow it only because like immediately we get like the resolution.
Girl, calm down. Yeah.
It's like a whew, okay.
Yeah, like, it's one of those that you then immediately have to read the next chapter to know what's going on, which is the point of a cliffhanger. But
but it is wild that you're like so close to like you can
we've been made.
You can like hold the like actual escape in your hand, like we're so close, and then oh shit, maybe not.
Just kidding. Are you loving our commentary on Black fantasy stories and want to hear thoughts on more classic tales? Tolkien Black Folks is a hashtag and podcast where you can find all kinds of Black nerdy discussions about Middle-earth. Check out previous episodes on the BNC Presents podcast feed, and if you're a Black Tolkien fan, make sure to use the hashtag during Season 2 of The Rings of Power.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective, which provides content through the lens of critical and creative fandom. In B&C's Discord, you can not only find a channel dedicated to all things Wizard Team, but spaces to connect with other fellow nerds about stories across media, genre, and more. Join a group read, find book recommendations, and maybe even get the juice to write your own story. Just go to bnc-community.com to join. So Samira immediately at the beginning of chapter 20 tells them to relax. They're fine. This is all part of the plan. And this is actually Lark who's bringing Cell, who rescued Cell. Lark also makes it a point to say that he had to knock Cell out in order for this rescue to happen because
the man is stubborn.
The boy is he's very stubborn, very dramatic.
But also to like kind of probably make up for you. Like, you're going to see a bruise on this man's face. I had to do it. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't have to. I just want you to know that.
Right. And also, like, it's so plausible that nobody's actually surprised.
As soon as he says it, they're like, yeah. Why'd you have to knock it? There's no argument. They're like, yeah, okay.
No.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Ouch.
Like, this is Selwyn Kane. So Bree, though, is surprised that he's helping, and Lark is kind of like, the mage guard is supposed to protect the king, and he says like some of us still hold to that, basically saying like I know what my actual job is here, and it's not to report to Erebus.
The demon king, which I don't know yet, but I keep moving funny and I don't like it, so I'm going for the king.
Yeah.
But the thing though is, I'm so sorry, Erebus is not moving funny.
He's moving acceptably to the order.
But
he's moving like
to
Lark,
they're all moving funny. That's what I'm saying. To Lark, he's like moving funny.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with the king.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like, point of clarification: the Regents are moving funny, and yet the Demon King is moving lockstep with them.
Exactly. But I also I think this also kind of gives a little bit of insight into, like we were talking about what's his name? Mm-hmm. Max, the hater, and the way like he's even hating on Lark, and they're literally mage guard together, you know what I mean? So it kind of like shows, again, it doesn't give like full backstory into that, and I don't think it will, given how Zhao, where he ends up or how he ends up, but you don't remember?
I don't remember. To the wiki. No, but I'm actually going to the chat.
Not that it's a spoiler, but I kind of
I don't know. I missed the last 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
In the Max, how Max ends up.
I was saying the way that he ends up means that we likely won't get more backstory into like his relationship with Lark. Why he's a hater. We might, but we might not.
Yeah.
Given what happens to him. And I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad at it at all. No, I honestly prefer the outcome.
I do think
some people just hate. That's the other thing. You don't always need backstory. Some people are just haters.
I do think though, one thing, sorry, before we get going, one thing about Lark that I took from this too is that unlike Cell, Lark is able to still move within this world and like recognize that the Regents are moving funny, make contacts with Jillian and all of them, and be someone that they can call and count on to save Bree and save Cell, but also still move up in the mage guard ranks that he is being considered for Bree's king mage, because he can keep his cool in a way that
has a different story than Lark, and I think, yeah.
Oh no, it's a totally different story. But I'm saying like they both have the
And the
talent, like
understanding too,
the
like they both are pretty
magical
good at
mage
understanding what's happening.
talent.
I'm thinking that like like it's not just that his like emotions take over, it's the fact that like he, because this is all coming from a place of me taking a lot of consideration for House of Dragon and the way that different characters in that story are moved by emotion, but also like just like they're motivated because they're trying to compensate for something about their actual like personal story. And I'm like, what is Cell compensating for that possibly Lark doesn't feel like he has to compensate for? He feels like he doesn't have that, and I feel like that's what Cell's kind of the whole storyline is that like he was pushed into being the King's Mage, which felt, and like, and this could be conjecture. I mean, it's conjecture until it's like made canon. But like it feels like he was pushed to be King's Mage at the like punishment of his mother, like to keep her in line. And so because of that, he kind of has this like chip on his shoulder because of who his parents possibly are, and also people's expectations of him.
I thought he was
But
bred to be King's
he
Mage.
was
He
like,
was, yeah,
his
like,
mom, that was whenever his mom was gone. He wasn't like just like his mom was like, oh, you're gonna be King's Mage.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
but I'm saying like he was chosen as
no,
King's
but I
Mage
mean,
as a
like
kid. Like they don't
But when his
really
mom was gone,
like
like it
I'm
feels like a punishment to his
hoping.
mom.
No, I get what you're saying.
yeah.
No, I'm saying in comparison to Lark, like Cell's always been King's Mage. Like I just feel like it's more like if it was between like it's between Lark and Zhao to be the new King's Mage, because apparently Cell's not actually King's Mage, right? They chose him, I think, based purely on skill, name, and then possibly to like, keep his mom in line, that kind of stuff. But when he was 7 or something like that. So it's not even like, oh, he's this like super dramatic. He might have been a dramatic child, but it's not a big deal. He's 7, right? Like what I'm saying is that when Lark is navigating all of these things in a way in which Bree is like, I don't really trust you, but you should. And Erebus and the Regents are like, we trust him enough to get close to this girl who we have bad things for, which they shouldn't. They should have chosen Zhao possibly, or you know what I mean? Like he's able to just kind of play the roles that he's able to play the roles that need to be played in front of the people to be in the right spots, in a way in which when Cell is going through it at the lodge, everyone is like, oh God, here we go. They're just kind of like walking on eggshells around him.
Right. He's more subtle.
Yeah, he's more subtle.
But I also like I guess, okay, so I guess part of what I was saying too is that like he has this, I think that it's interesting to see the different kinds of indoctrination and how they do and don't do or don't take. In the sense that like we know that Lark's dad is a Merlin. And they have like a different sense of duty to the Legendborn than to the Regents, whereas a lot of these other Mage Guard have this duty to the Regents over the Crown Scion. But then there's also like, I guess there's also the question of if he was actually like, they didn't really intend for him to be
Didn't
her
expect her
King's
to actually
Mage,
get owed
because they
to
didn't actually
anything.
intend for her to be
Yeah.
an acting Crown Scion.
Oh, okay.
They didn't actually expect to, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that's also an interesting thing of like what he, like, I don't think that he knew that. Like, I think that he definitely was told that he was gonna be King's Mage and that like that was his duty or whatever. But I'm curious at what point he
realize
maybe is connecting the dots on his own. And also like what King's Mage or not, like again, he's Mage Guard, and again, like that's he takes what those oaths are seriously, even though like I guess there's no official oath with Bree yet. But yeah, so he also mentions that he owed Cell for saving him that other night when they were attacked by all the demons. So then William thanks Lark, and they have this whole little moment.
I love this
where
part because I'm like,
it's very
these are definitely young adults where like Thirst does what Thirst does, because I'm like, now is not the time. Lark,
they just looking at each other.
just
Then
he's
like, thanks. He said, no thanks needed, Scion Sitterson. He's like, call me William. And then he just like looks at him for
I was
how
like,
long and then goes, William.
And like Bree has been through all of this stuff.
It's like, yeah, I feel like it's like we don't have this negative 30 seconds y'all are using to do this. However, we need these negative 30 seconds for y'all to do this because Bree needs a little distraction. Everybody needs a little distraction of love right now. Just a little flirtation. That's cute. We're for it.
Bree said.
She said
I feel like it's like a Love Island, like put into like a 30-second little, like a 30-second Love Island for Bree to take with her.
You want to go for a chat? No, bitch. Mage card coming. Where should we go? Should we go to the seats? No, get out of here.
The day bed.
On the day bed.
The airplane seats. No, I actually gotta go. So yeah, Lark actually doesn't have to go because the Mage Guard are about to pull up, and he's still like he's not on the run like the rest of them. Like he's still in his cover, which it's like, is it a cover? Is he like, what is it? You know what I mean?
He's just doing
another
job.
Mage. It's kind of like the lieges though. Like or like these particular lieges, right? Like they kind of have a cover in the sense that like they don't want the Regents to know that they support Bree, but at the same time, they're literally doing their job.
Yeah.
So he's going back to the Mage Guard so that they don't know that he is loyal to Bree and that he broke Cell out, because that on its own would probably land him in the Shadow Hold next to Cell's Shadow Hold. So yeah, so he dips and the plane takes off just as the Mage Guard pull up. But they're too far away to make any constructs to stop them, so they're like in the clear. And now it's kind of,
I just want to note that the Mage Guard would be messy and destructive enough to try to conjure a construct to knock a plane out the sky.
Right.
Like that's the level of thought that's happening there. Like we have to be able to move quicker than they do so they don't knock us out the effing sky.
Yep. So yeah, so now they're in the air. They're safe for now, and it's time. Now's the time for the updates on like what's going on,
the plan, and making now
you
get to be involved in phase 2. Phase 1, you were Nick with the shit. You were the damsel in distress. Now phase 2,
you were phase 1.
Phase 2, now we can be involved. Now we can make some plans together.
So yeah, so they get the breakdown. Tor and Sarah are at the northern chapter. It doesn't say specifically what they're doing, but I think Bree was like, we were told that they were gonna go like join the hunt for Nick. And the Lees just kind of confirmed that they're at the northern chapter, while Felicity, Pete, and Greer are still at the southern chapter fighting demons. William is upset because he's kind of like, oh, I can't believe they gave up on us, but Jillian kind of explains that they're still in the dark, and partially to make sure that their operation was successful. They're like, we didn't want to tell Greer and Pete because then they'd want to come on the thing, and like you don't want too many people in an operation, and that's how like mistakes get made, and
what did they say about secrets? Like, you wouldn't keep a secret if one of them is dead. It's like, if once you get too many people on the secret plan, the secret tunnel, it's
not really secret no more.
Secret tunnel. Why did you say that?
So yeah, so then William is like, okay, he kind of drops that feeling of betrayal, but then it's also like, they should know about the serum though, because it's literally created to target their abilities or their inheritances. But Bree points out that the Regents may not actually need to use it on them, right? Like if they show them that video of the right and are like, Bree lost control, she's like, it's not far-fetched for them to believe that Bree is dangerous and that she needs to be like, isolated or whatever. And so they may not need to be sedated. They can just be lied to and accept that. And then she's like, especially Tor, or Tor, who would definitely just like, she would turn me in again.
I love that William's like,
and then
again.
Will's like, again? Like, again? And she's like, yeah, that's the whole, all this happened because Tor alerted them, like, before.
Tor the traitor.
And has basically been spying on me this whole time. Yeah. Traitor.
The thing is that, like, the thing is, too, is that, like, you could say, if Tor wasn't Tor, you could say that that first call right after was like, okay, you know, the shit was going off. There's a lot of stuff happening. You called the Regents because you're like,
what do we do?
We would like some guidance. What do we do? We got it all wrong, right? The line is fucked. It's the fact that, like, then a month happens and she's still checking in with them and not saying shit.
Mm-hmm.
And
on top of that, she never kneeled to Bree either in the Ogoff. So, like, she's made it very clear from jump that she doesn't accept Bree as her, like, crown scion. So it's like, is it even really traitorous if she's been pretty upfront with how she feels?
To the rest of her order members that she did come into it all with, because like you should move as they're moving if they're your people. They're clearly not that deep. Like, your relationship to them is not that deep to you. Because you are willing to like do something against what they would want, even though you're supposed to be. And it's because you want to be in charge, low-key. Like, you wanted to be the one.
It's that, and it's the
that,
like,
she doesn't want Bree to be in charge.
Yeah.
But
it's racism, but it's also the racism going against your actual interests, which is something that
white women voting in the 20
always comes up. Yeah, always go against your interests for racism. Yeah. That's
it's
like
almost like they're Wakanda forever. They're like, Wakanda for racism?
Racism forever. For racism without question. So Alice is immediately, which it's honestly really funny because it's like, you know, they're having a serious moment, but she goes, I hate that bitch.
And if that's not a best friend, if that is not a best friend,
that's right. I know that's right. She said, "Look, I'm gonna just say what should be said. Okay?
I'm gonna call a spade
I hated her.
When I see a spade,
look, I hated her before I even knew that she needed to be hated. Okay, before I even knew all this mess, I knew I hated her.
Call me Zao.
Said, clock that immediately.
Number one.
And then William over here, like, yeah, man, she's always been a hater. That's kind of basically what she says. Like, yeah, Tor's always been a hater. And they're like, William, be for real. It's not just hate. It's a specific kind of hate. It's a big, bigoted hate.
Can
it's
we?
Not just,
shall we name the hate?
It's just not opportunity hate here. This is like,
she's not gonna come around here, William.
It's not. I'm like, this isn't like, this isn't rat beef hate. This is like systemic hate. This is about the institutional hate. Okay, like, this is something else.
And Samira, who is out of it, different generation, but Black, said, boy,
be for real. So she literally,
but it was Gil. It wasn't William. It was Gil.
William is. Well, no. It was William first. So, because William initially is like, she's never liked you ever since you became a page, but he doesn't say. It's not that he thinks that Tor likes Bree. He's just kind of hedging around what the actual issue is.
Like Bree.
He don't like new people. She doesn't.
Right. She doesn't. You're an outsider. He said all because you're an outsider, I think is what she said. Like, because she was, you know, allegedly once born or whatever. And they're just like, no, that's not what it is. And Samira says, we can't protect Bree if we ignore the forces against her, how deep they go, how far, and how wide. Because again, right, she would have front row seats, lots of experience.
She knew some tours. She knew some tours in her class.
Quite a few tours.
But also, she probably didn't like. I don't even. She doesn't even know tours. She just like, I just know this order. I know the world. I know how it works.
Yeah, that's what
But it's not even. But also, she is a squire. Like, she is a Black Legendborn. And and on top of that, like, she was, I mean, and Bree to an extent has this because before it, you know, she was competing to become Nick's squire. So in a sense, they have similar experiences, or like I guess tracks up until the point that we discover that Bree was Arthur the whole time.
It was
But
Agatha all along.
yeah, so she's
Agatha
definitely
all along. I knew it. I clocked you. I knew it, Porshèa. I Porshèa before Porshèa could Porshèa.
Oh
I was
my
out
gosh.
portioned. I've never out portioned.
So yeah, so then Jill is talking about is like Tor will come around, and Alice is immediately like, sure, if you say so.
Be for real.
If that's what y'all think, that's what you think, that she'll come around.
If that's what helps you sleep at night.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I really appreciate these moments. And like there's a couple in Legendborn 2 that we like talked about when they happened, like the hair touching thing, or like there was some other moment too where like the well-meaning white folks, the folks who are otherwise like Bree's friends and who support her, are still have their own kind of like their, I don't want to say
reckoning,
but also they have their like things that they don't see, right? Like they have these like
blind spots.
Yeah, I was trying not to use that word, but I can't think of the
Oh.
I was trying to think of the other one. But they have places where they need work or where they need to be called out, right? They're like supposed to, or in their heads they're supporting her, but then they are making allowances for Tor, or not really calling out what that really is, or feeling uncomfortable about being like real about why she's been acting this way. It's pure racism. Like that's what it is. There's no other reason for her to be hating in this way. And so, yeah, so I just appreciate this moment of like, and of Bree not really having to say much. Like Alice kind of takes it on for the most part. And Samira to an extent too, but like Alice very much is like, nope, I'm not giving anything. She's getting nothing from me. I hate her. I made that very clear.
I'm divested from giving white people, but Tor specifically,
she's getting
show up and be a better person.
Grace.
No thank.
She says she's getting no grace from me.
You can keep it. Y'all can keep looking for it.
The interesting thing about this oversight and this like logical gap, this gap in logic, this like bridge that they,
but also it's like an internal bias because they themselves are trying to be thoughtful about like how they would want to be approached. It's like, but you're not if you're the person you're supposed to be, you're not moving in the same way this person is over
and it's also it's the
giving
like
too much to
the over familiar or like-mindedness. You're putting someone in, you're equating someone who looks like you into you. Yeah, in the same way in which like you don't, you know, we're not a monolith, but you think of us as a monolith, you think that we think of you as a monolith type of thing. Which anyway, I think it's interesting in terms of the generational kind of thing where this is like, it's definitely a pillar of like white supremacy and giving people the benefit of the doubt and all of this stuff. But and I don't know if we figure this out later on or whatever, but like Jillian was from the northern chapter, I believe. I don't know if we do find out like what chapter Samira is from or whatever.
Not southern, because both her and Lissa are from lines that we don't see in the southern chapter. So they're either western or northern.
But what we know is that like the northern chapter, for example, isn't having a Bree. Like the way that Tor, when Bree was coming in as like a page, as a squire, and Tor did that fucked up
most diverse class or whatever.
Yeah. Is that like there?
Which if Samira is
thinking in the southern chapter.
because they were making allowances for gender for gender
She
and
might have
sexuality. Is
have
that
been
what the
talking about
diversity was?
in the Southern chapter specifically, and not like in the
Yeah.
full order. I
Well,
think that's
what
what
I'm
she
saying
meant.
though is that like,
But also,
what,
she also maybe just
Right, like,
didn't.
it may have been, 'cause
Yeah.
that, you know how white women are for sexual, like, "Oh, sexuality means something to," like, it does, but
but
also
what I'm
does it
saying though is
with
that
its
in
DEI.
general, the amount of Black people, it's not like there's like one Black person per chapter each class or generation or whatever, however we like are putting the legions or whatever. It's like one Bree, one Samira.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe while you guys were growing up,
Half.
you were in the same chapter and saw what Samira had to go through, or you're like William and you were close to Bree and seeing what Bree's going through now currently. But then the rest of the order, like all of the pages, squires, and the Legendborn in like the Southern chapter, Western chapter, whatever, they're not, it's still white as hell, and they're not seeing that. So then when they become lieges, Samira
Right.
is probably going through that all over again as well. In like a bigger, you know, they're coming together, the chapters become less important, right? But then it's also easier for, I'm saying Jillian, I don't know, I can't remember, but for them to also have that oversight, because they didn't even have a Samira in their chapter when they were growing up. So then you don't have to, you're not faced with a tour, right? Like, you're not faced with like the outward like bigotry unless you're seeing these people in class or like how they're dealing with once-borns and like every day. But we know that they're not actually hanging out publicly together.
But also Jill or Gil, whichever pronunciation it is also disabled. And sometimes people who have another, who have
Marginalization.
an identity, a marginalized identity component, like they often will be like, especially white folks. Let me just say it. White folks who have any other marginalization often will be like, because they often have to make, again, in their own minds, allowances for whenever there isn't against by other white folks. And because they do that, they allow for certain things that it's like, baby, we're not going to be allowing that over here. You can keep playing if you want to, but not over here. That is unacceptable. And either you stand up for yourself and you tell them to stop effing with you, or you just make peace with the fact that you're okay with them being crappy to you. But over here, the line is drawn immediately. And I know that you feel like you might cut some people off if you do that and you're scared or whatever. Make your peace with that. But let's be clear about over here, we draw the line. We're not allowing, oh, I'm going to allow for them to grow out of that. Oh, you're allowing them. Oh, okay. It's not that you're the one who's being forced into a corner. It's you're allowing them. If that's how that helps you feel good, better at night, sure. But let's be clear about the truth. And the truth is that there is a being against you and they should be held accountable for it. And you just don't feel like doing it because it's going to hurt your heart. And I get it. But over here, we don't have time to make allowances for that. And some Black folk do it too. Some of the Black kids like to be doing that. Not over here.
Yeah. So then they kind of talk about, or maybe Bree asks about Felicity and how she's doing. And they talk about her struggling through what's called the agony, which we mentioned before but couldn't remember the name for it. Well, it's basically the pain and grief of, it's such a good name, and it's
such a
also
good
horrible.
Like, it's like, that's probably why we forget it, because it's like, it makes
but
sense.
They got stuff like they got
wait.
abatement, y'all gotta worry about the agony, y'all got like, this is actually out of pocket. And
The
Merlin
woes.
and Arthur
They
need
got
different
woes.
area.
Merlin and Arthur gotta they gotta catch hands.
Also, I was thinking in my outportioning Porshèa, the Stephen Sondheim Into the Woods agony. I can't sing, so I'm not doing it, but it's a very like ballad Broadway where they say agony in a very dramatic way, and that's just what I feel.
That's what it's giving.
Like,
yeah. So
I feel like that's what Bree hears when she looks over at William.
Right. So we find that it's the pain and grief of feeling an oath break in battle. Which again, we've talked about, like for Felicity, it's also twofold because Russ was also her like her, yeah,
Her lover.
her, like they were in love with each other. So it's like that relationship on top of the like magical like the agony, right? It's like you have your grief and then you also have the agony, which is just more grief, basically. But also it kind of sounds a little bit like an injury,
Yeah.
in some ways.
Grief on
And
steroids.
yeah. And so, but there is a mention that there is a liege, his name is Owen, who's there to like help her, which like at least they do have someone to kind of someone who I assume has either been through it or knows, you know, they're a liege, they have more what's the word? Like just experience with that. So
they have this large liege network. I'm hoping that Owen is
yeah,
a psychologist. Like,
I hope
we
so.
have psychology
I hope so.
on the table for.
It feels like there should be, but it also kind of they don't go into it that deep, you know what I mean? In terms of like
Yeah.
they just say that he's there. Which sounds better than no one being
Not being
there.
there.
But we don't
Nothing.
know like the depths of like how like what that actually looks like. But in this conversation, this is when Bree realizes that William has been dealing with the same thing. And so she kind of looks at him and he turns away because he's like he's not trying to actually have that conversation at this moment. So Bree,
Or
I guess,
ever.
and so Bree,
Let's
or
be
ever,
honest.
right? But then Bree kind of like in this moment kind of lets it go, or really just like moves past it in this moment where she kind of asks about her dad. We find out that he's being watched by lieges who are loyal to her. They also have a burner phone that she can use to call him that like clones her phone number, so he won't like realize something's up, you know, like she's been imprisoned and just had to get broken out and is now on the run instead of in English class. So yeah, there is a moment she finally says thank you for that. So that's the
Also, is this when Alice is like, I told our parents we were busy with classes, so we wouldn't be calling much. And I'm like,
well, so yeah,
I told my mom once, granted, I went to Kentucky and went on a houseboat, but I told my mom that I lost my charger and I wasn't going to get a new one until I got paid and my phone was dead. And turned my phone off so I could leave me alone. Turn my phone off so I could go to Kentucky. And then I got in a car accident and had to turn my phone back on to tell my boss that I was going to be late. And my mom was like, almost like on a plane. My brother was calling me like, can you please call mom? I can't, you know, because I told my brother where I was. Because, you know, I'm going to Kentucky. I ain't, you know, I might get hate crime. Come avenge me. But also, you know,
mess.
I love the idea that Alice is to like, oh, you're busy, so you won't be calling for a couple. It's been like 6 days. They are 16 in early college. This was
my mom would never. Not when I was 16. Now that I'm 36,
the least
yes,
believable.
16.
But I think so. They say so Bree one considers updating Mariah and Patricia, but then decides that like not to, just because more information will just expose them. But then also they also mentioned the lieges are watching Alice's parents as well, and then she does say that thing about them, like about her telling them that they're studying. I wonder how much, because like I know that maybe it was the dean or whoever kind of had to tell Bree's dad that it was cool for her to moved into the lodge. Like I wonder if there was more than just Alice saying that. Or I mean, you know, they have a burner, so she can. I'm assuming
that Alice has.
It's maybe like less check-ins.
I'm assuming Alice had a burner.
Or also, you know what? Actually, Alice was going home every weekend before.
Oh.
So I think that's more what it is.
So she's not going home.
She's like, I can't come home because I have to study. But not necessarily that like she wasn't going to be talking to them on the phone.
But here's my thing is that like I'm assuming that Alice is then like, even while they have 6 days in which they're planning this like escape, extraction or whatever, that she's checking in with her parents throughout this time.
Yeah.
Bree is not checking in with her dad, which is where I'm saying this is the most unrealistic part, because like I could tell my mom, oh, I'm really busy, but that don't mean that means she might give me
in 6 days.
we have seen Bree's phone communication skills. So
True.
I feel like that has been established. But also Alice has
But
also
6
I'm pretty
days? He
sure
hasn't
Alice
heard
said
her
that she's
voice
talked
in
to
6
to her dad.
days.
So
Yeah.
there's like
Yeah.
one, you have Alice to kind of help like back you up, and
This
Bree
goes into my theory
was
though
not
about
sending messages before that. We say 6 days since she's talked to
funny,
her
but
dad. Do we know that it hasn't been longer?
it.
It might be more.
You make a
But
point
also,
about
like,
Bree and
fun
the
fact.
phones,
But fun fact about like the messages, he's probably getting more regular messages now that someone else is faking being her than he's ever received while she was actually had access to her phone. Like, this is probably the most checked in she's seemed.
Oh, you think that someone's like sending text
since she's been in
messages as
college.
Bree
Maybe Alice.
instead of calling? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If anyone is,
okay, so
if Alice
is like texting as Bree, okay, fine. But I was just like, girl, please. We're busy studying. My mom will give me an extra
what a clever
6 hours, maybe.
Right.
She'd be like, all right, I haven't heard from you in 12 hours as opposed to 6.
So we need to
But by that 13th hour, my mom would be like, you out your fucking I am on my way. I'm in the airport.
So then we get into next steps, basically. So Jillian brings up the Regents' plan, which we already have heard from their mouths about keeping Camelin secret, as long as they can. But then she says that if the traditionalist, but if they can't, like if Camelin is exposed or whatever, the traditionalist families, including the Legendborn families, will call for the king. And so he's like, so that means that they have a plan B. Bree's like, what's plan B? Selwyn, who has been knocked out on the couch this whole time, decides this is his moment to dramatically enter the conversation, because this is just who he is as a person. He can't never do anything normal. He couldn't be like, yawn, hi guys, how's it going? He had to be listening in on the conversation.
Or even like a subtle groan,
like, oh, Sel's awake.
Okay.
He said, no, I'm waiting for my moment. I love it.
I have a thing about this, and it's not gonna, I love Sel. I love everything about this boy. It's not gonna make you feel any better. My boy is deeply depressed and has almost given up. And I think that colors a lot of this. And you'll see it.
You mean like, yeah.
He was ready. Okay, I don't know. I'm trying to wait until we get to it on the page. But he was ready to die.
Okay, so wait.
Okay.
Let's get through the thing. It's the end of the chapter.
We're nearly there.
you're not gonna call my boy
dramatic. I'm not gonna call him a drama queen. Selwyn Kane. I'm not gonna call him a drama queen.
Context.
Yes, there are multiple. Yes, 100%. He has context for every moment.
You think dramatic people don't think
they have reason? And the thing is, I'm not even talking about what he says. I'm just talking about how he enters the conversation. Is textbook.
The aura. The aura of him.
That's all.
Yeah.
Anyway, what he says though is actually kind of like serious and a little terrifying. So he says that also shout out to him, because I know he'd been thinking about this in the Shadowhold. Like, I already know what the Regent's about to do. He's got it. He's on their ass. He's clocked their tea. So he explains that plan B is that the Regents present a compliant, high-ranked scion, someone they think both looks and acts the part, which means not Bree, because she does not look the part, and not Nick, because he has not proven to be able to act the part.
Which is a question mark to me.
Why?
To me. Because I feel like this is really jumping the gate, like when it comes to Nick.
Just because that boy is blonde, he's been very clear.
No, he looks the part. Again, it's one who looks the part, and one. I mean, Bree doesn't really act the part either. Not gonna lie.
He can't act the part.
Bree doesn't act the part, but But what? No, because what has Nick actually done that would set off the
He denounced
Regents?
his
We haven't
claim.
heard them
He
say
denounced his
anything about
claim
Nick.
until Bree showed up.
That doesn't. They have not said anything about Nick. They've not said either
But I
a
think
good
that's the
or
point.
bad word
But I
about
think
Nick
that's
or
the
his
point.
father.
That's the point,
this
though.
whole
They've
time.
said a little bit about it, but well, Sestra did because she was on her white
But
feminism kick.
but what they're saying is that if the traditionalists are calling.
No, that was Nick. That was Nick's ancestors.
No. They're talking about they're not talking about the ancestors. They're
talking about if the traditionalists,
I was talking about.
Oh no, she said something about
both
Davis too. Sestra was also not
about
messing with
Daddy Davis too.
Yeah,
she's not messing with them. But what Cell is saying is that if they need to parade someone out in public to the rest of the order, Nick is not doing that. Nick is not going to be the compliant. I'm gonna toe the line.
Especially with Bree
I'm gonna carry the water. I'm gonna carry the water for the. You think that Nick is not gonna dime out the Regents?
I think that the Regents know Nick's number. They know how to push his buttons and make him do what they want him to do.
The thing is, I don't think I think that they do if
I think
they do
they have the power
if
to
they
do
had
whatever
Bree,
they want.
if they still had Bree hostage, sure. Right, but they don't have that anymore. So they're also talking about because they
don't have leverage
up
over
part of their plan A. They literally just did that. Like they took Bree out of the equation in that sense. So I think that like maybe before, if Bree was being held hostage, then maybe. But I don't think that. I think because it's very clear that Nick has his own issues with being the scion of Arthur. Even before any of this happened, he denounced his claim. He came back, but then he found out he's not even the scion of Arthur. So they would have to do a lot, and especially with especially if they're talking about like how they present to the traditionalist families. A lot of them also, you saw, they called him out at the funeral. Like they are not necessarily.
But they believe
he's it.
They would like. I feel like they would
believe
swallow.
He's it, but they're trying to think of people.
I believe they would swallow Nick being out of the place for a moment and then coming back. But then they would swallow a new person.
No, because they're gonna martyr.
I feel like
right.
The Regents would play into what are they gonna buy?
And I think it's easier. I think it's easier to do what they're planning to do.
Nick.
Right. Especially if they
try
make
to have
it heroic.
Him hold their water.
It's like he fought bravely
blah,
against
blah, blah.
the demons and the whoop-de-whoop. And now, especially because they don't think that Arthur's been awakened, right? They can easily kill him off without.
I'm just not convinced that's the reason.
They probably would kill Nick, not say anything. They would still have people thinking that Nick is the scion of Arthur
before the
and not awake. Before the awakening, and trot out this new Lancelot. Meanwhile, Nick is dead, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, he's still in hiding." They're not gonna. The thing
not
is
Nick
that
is dead and he's still in hiding. So hold up.
No. I'm saying they would kill Nick to get this new Lancelot, but publicly they would still say Nick is the scion of Arthur and he's over here, but Lancelot has been awakened.
That's
and he's
not
our
what they're
public
saying
face right now.
That's not what they're saying. What they're saying is, because we have to remember, no one knows that Bree is Arthur. Everyone else still thinks that the line of Davis is the line of Arthur. So they're using a high rank scion, someone they think and looks and acts the part of the scion of Arthur. Right? They've isolated the next eligible layer of the Lancelot line, but to everyone else, that's the next eligible heir to Arthur
and Davis.
Right, so Arthur. It's people still think he's. I don't know if dude thinks he's the line of Arthur still or not. Like, right, like he might. And they can also, like, if Camline gets exposed, they can also play that off as like Nick got killed by a demon before he was awakened. Now the heir was awakened, and now Camline has come. You know what I mean? In terms of timeline, like they can control the narrative on like when Camline actually starts and how it started, and make it seem like this new dude, who I don't know if he's a cousin or a whatever, is the scion of Arthur, not Lancelot. Even if he finds out, like I'm sure at the point that he gets called, he's like, oh, this is definitely not Arthur. Really, the question is what they would do with Lancelot, but they could probably. That's
What
what
are
I'm
they gonna do with
saying.
the
Like,
false
what they gonna do
Lancelot
with
is
him? I
the
don't
real
know,
question.
but they're definitely
For me.
in their head. They're
They gonna
planning
put him
to
in hiding.
present. Right. He's off.
They don't care about that.
No.
They don't
I know, but
care about
they
people,
would
though.
institute.
So why would
They,
they put him in
They would
hiding?
have
they
to
have to.
have him. They would have to have a reason.
But then they have to get
They
rid
would
of
have
the
to have a
whole
reason for
line.
him to not. I don't think they would kill him. They would just have a reason for him to not be
No.
visible as
They would.
a scion.
But then they have to isolate the whole line. Then if that
I-
to make them under, because that would have to be clear to people. Like, if you're trying to pass off a Lancelot as an Arthur, you have to get rid of the line of actual Lancelot being in place.
No,
So you don't-
I
not
think
just
they
one
would.
person
They would
you have to isolate. You have to
institutionalize
isolate.
the guy who is publicly thought of as.
They'd have to institutionalize all
No,
of
no,
the
no. They would just.
No, they
They would
wouldn't.
just
line
the
of
one guy
Lancelot
and say
then.
that he's off fighting.
Yeah, they just
They
have to
wouldn't trot
say
him
that he's
out.
been awakened. They don't have
When-
to actually
Yeah.
like. They don't have to
He doesn't
actually
have to
show
in
it.
public.
But
If-
Lancelot's powers are on the table. It's not like it's like they're not like because
the traditionals
Arthur is
aren't in the
awake. That means
battles.
Lancelot's power
The
set is
traditionals are in
out.
battles. They're just getting like the newsletter.
So the Legend Warner is gonna be like, oh yeah, we totally have an Arthur over here.
I mean,
yeah,
the
this is
thing,
an
the
Arthur.
idea is
Thor
that they're all going to
immediately
be under.
would be bought in.
Yeah, they're all going to be under. They're under the Regents.
I'm not talking about Tor when I'm talking about that. I'm talking about like the whole.
I think they
rest of
would.
the Legend Warner crew.
I mean, it's a convoluted. It's not conspiracy.
It's not necessarily.
But it is.
I don't think that. I don't think that
It's
it's
just-
100% is gonna work. But I think that the Regents have. I mean, we see how much power they have, right? And there's only what Pete and Greer who are loyal to Bree. Maybe Felicity, but Felicity's dealing with her own shit. So like, how much is she really gonna push, right? It's really the three of them. I would say 2.5 of them. They could very easily kill Pete and call his next of. You know what I mean? Like, I think with the lower ranked, it's easier to kind of keep them in line. I think that they're still definitely coming after Bree and William, and then they could kill Will and get a new. You know what I mean? Like, I think for the actual legend, the scions, not necessarily the squires, but at least the scions. And again, I don't. Obviously, the plan does not work the way that they want it to, and it's a plan B, not a plan A. But their plan A is not working, so.
I mean, and everyone here is talking about Nick getting killed as a.
Well, no.
plan A.
They're saying that. Yeah, I think so. I think
Now
they're
that Bree is
saying that
gone.
it means that it means that they're sending folks to kill Nick and not necessarily to save him, like they have been talking. But I think that regardless, they see Nick as a loose end, and especially with his dad is definitely a loose end, or like, you know what I mean, like it's a place of exposure or potential exposure. So like, I think it's one of those things where they know that like Nick is not Arthur, so he's expendable. And they know that if they're isolating the other dude, they know that he's going to be loyal to them. They know that he's going to follow whatever they're telling him to do with very little like questioning. Whereas like Nick has a lot more questioning on top of the fact that like he actually knows the truth.
Yeah. I think it's also, and we should like keep going because
Yeah,
we're
we should.
running it on, but I think it's also just a matter of the two fronts of the PR war and what they can say publicly to, because what Bree thinks about in this moment is like Nick says, back in the day they used to kill the like women or the girl children.
Firstborn.
So that they could, the firstborn, so they could force the line to go to a man because of misogyny. So they're not above killing and trying to force the line to fit their needs.
I'm not,
but
I
I think it's a lot of what they want the line to do and how they get the line back under control and what they're telling the public, because what Bree sees when she's going through the Institute and stuff is that, and I think the Regents, I forget who kind of breaks it down. I think it's the Regents or whatever, but they're like, there are the traditionalists that you need to keep happy because they're bought into the lore and all of this stuff. And then there are the modernists who are there for the prestige and the money and where it goes, but they're not really bought into the like fight against good and evil and the lore. They're just like, oh, this is a organization that helps put me in positions of power. And so the PR game is what the Regents are trying to control first and foremost, and then hoping that like the actual getting the line and stuff back in order and under their thumb, they're hoping that they can do that behind the scenes and privately.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to have the door.
Oh, the whatever that was. Horn. Yeah, so that's how the chapter ends. Is they're kind of realizing, and again, some of this is also like it's all conjecture as well. Like it's not like they actually have someone feeding them information. They're kind of like based on what's been happening and how the Regents have been moving. These are kind of like educated guesses on what is coming next. And also like presenting to Bree like what the actual situation is.
So we start the next chapter with Bree not reacting well to Nick's probable death sentence. She's basically the Mr. Krabs meme where the whole world is moving around her and she's just like, what? But neither of the rest of her friends, because all the people who are moving around her, which are Cell and Alice, who have their mouths are just moving at a mile a minute. And William actually collapses into a seat with his head in his hand. So like,
they're not taking this well.
No one's doing well with this thought process. And so, of course, the adults in the room are like, hey, let's pull together. We do have an entire leech network, and we're ready to put our resources behind you to help you figure out what we do next. We can do two things. We could figure out a rescue mission for Nick, or we could be thoughtful about the position that we're all in, fugitives, that's a state of place where you are right now, all of you here. Y'all could go into hiding. And
Cell and Bree in particular.
And Cell's immediate knee-jerk reactions are like, are you? No, absolutely not. And William and Alice, the ones who are more concerned about Bree's well-being, are like, perhaps we should consider
they're not even saying let's definitely do this, but they're like, let's not just
ignore it. Yeah.
Let's not throw it out.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so interesting though. Like, one, Bree and Cell are so similar. Like, they're both immediately like, yeah, obviously we go save Nick. It's like, is it obvious? I don't know if it's obvious.
And it's so sad because Bree keeps getting pushed into like moving into action mode because she doesn't want to feel put aside, or like she even says that she doesn't want to be a coward. And it's like, girl, being smart, and it might be, if someone else might label that a coward move, but that's a smart move, because when you put yourself in a position to plan instead of just jump into things, you see how you were able to like get out of a very secure building within 6 minutes? That would not have been possible had people just try to jump into the institute. You know what I mean? So perhaps,
yeah, it's like Bree and Cell are thinking that hiding is inaction, and it's not. They're not even saying inaction. They're saying lay low, plan, plot, collect information,
and they'll have to do that anyway.
Let some of the heat die down.
Excuse me.
Right. Which is hilarious. It's hilarious because
there's all these people out for Nick. They're like, and they go down a list of people who are out to like find Nick right now. Like the people who are in the Legendborn team, the demons, like all these people are out. And then they do the same thing. It's like they do instead of a pro con list, it's like enemies list, Bree and Nick. And it's like same enemies, but then Bree's got the extra component of like, oh yeah, like maybe like they would also be like, it's just like, Bree, you're Arthur, so you're gonna have higher priority to be taken than Nick will. So they're gonna go after you with full guns versus half guns as they have Nick. So
I mean, and then it's hilarious because like like Bayana says, like, they end up having to kind of lay low anyway because they go out guns blazing. This is shit. Like,
she also just doesn't. Again, we just see time and time again, she does not want to be Arthur. And so in her head, she's like, I don't want to be Arthur. I don't want to be affiliated with him. Like, so I'm gonna act like I'm not.
it's not a. It's that Lucille Bluth meme where she's like, that seems like a criticism and I elect to ignore it. What does that gif go? I won't hear it and I won't acknowledge it. It's like what Bree's doing with like the Arthur thing. And it's like,
I get
just because you don't want to be Arthur doesn't mean that you're not. But it's also, just because certain people think that Nick is Arthur doesn't mean that there is not a contingent of people and demons who know that you're Arthur. Like, so you can't just, like, in the way in which she would be, like, kind of upset with what's-her-face for, like, not calling her Crown Scion and not treating her, and the Regents and stuff for not treating her with, like, the respect that she thinks the king is due. She also kind of appreciated living that lie of Nick is still Arthur, because then she doesn't have to, like, face it.
This isn't the same, but it's similar in emotionality, I suppose, where my whole life I've been told that I look like my father. And do I look like this man? I suppose. Sure. But I like to be able to say, I don't know. Oh, really? I never thought about it. Because I've been told this my whole life. Since I was a small child. Who wants to just, every time you come into a room, you look like your girl. I'm me, though. This is me. I'm me. So when people are like, who do you think you look like? I think I look like me. Because that's who I look like. Do I like being in denial? Like, is it denial in a way?
But it works.
I want to see it that way. However,
I once had a therapist say,
I'm effing
avoidance.
Me. I'm me.
Works.
Okay. And I am a top-notch avoidant. Okay.
Hello?
That is my emotional attachment style. I will avoid the F out of so many things. Including whose genetics made my face.
Just wait until you have a niece or nephew that looks exactly like you, and then you get told that you look like I don't look like, she looked like me. She just got here. She stole my face.
That man might have said that I look like his Titus. He did say I was his evil twin. I'm like, sir, you can't even have an evil twin. Because you know what? I'm crafty and I can be evil if you push me. But right now. Yeah. So I get the denial and an extent of like the detachment of self that she's trying to do there. But it's also kind of funny because it's like, it's plain to see this is what's happening. And like it comes to a head in this moment because she's looking around for others to call the shots on which option to go with. And then as everybody quietens up and kind of like peers up at her a little bit, like they're looking like, you gonna say she's like, oh, it's me. It's like there's no big Bree. It's just big me and not enough Bree.
It's just big Bree. Well, the thing that's really funny too is it feels like she wants from her like adversaries, she wants them to acknowledge her, but then she doesn't want to acknowledge herself.
It's like, you know what it is?
She's holding both of them at the same time.
What it is
Arthur's a different person than she is. He's like, Arthur has privilege.
What it is
Bree is Bree.
This is a classic, like, I would definitely say, like, it happens as you get older as well, but it's definitely like an early 20s thing. An early 20s thing of where
you're like, oh,
realize you're an adult.
Yeah.
And you want people to treat you like an adult. You want to be able to do all the things adults can do. But then that bill comes. You got a car note, you got phone bill, you got your credit card bill.
Sometimes
or God forbid your Wi-Fi goes out and you have to handle it. Like, God forbid you have to deal with insurance.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're like, now why is this up to me? I should not be the decision maker here. What do you mean by that? Like, why am I doing this?
Anytime you're looking around and you're like,
why am I in it?
Anytime you're doing work and you end up being the decision maker,
what do I have to do with this? Like, who allowed
and it's, you know, it's fun
to make these decisions?
Who did that? It's so fun whenever I think Broad City had this, like, you know, generally they have memes with this, and I one point in one of the episodes they are like 27, like whenever someone asks her she wants to get I think it's Alana, she wants to get married, and she's like 27, when I get married at 27, a child bride, and I'm like, exactly, that's exactly what it feels like.
Literally.
A child bride, a teen mother. Like, girl, you're 28, teen mother, why would I, how dare you? Like, that just, because it just doesn't, it don't feel right. And so, like, I acknowledge in a moment that Bree is actually 16, but she's in a college experience, and this is legit something that does happen around the time you're in college, where you're just like, I look around this room and I don't know how I'm the one who has to make this decision.
Yeah.
It's also like, oh, y'all just
And I think it's really funny too.
And y'all agree. Why do y'all?
I think it's really funny too
Y'all not gonna
that
say
like
nothing.
she and Cell are like arguing. Like in her head, it's a debate, right? Like she thinks that everyone has a equal say in the room, and she
a vote
is fine with that. She obviously has her plan on what she wants to do, but she's ready to fight her case. And they're like, you don't have to, just tell us what you want to do and we'll do it regardless. And I think that like power dynamic makes her uncomfortable, even though she gets to choose what she wants to do.
I think it's also the monarchy of it all. Like, this is not a democracy, and it's like
it's a cheerocracy. It's not a cheerocracy.
This is a dictatorship. But I think it's also that part of like, no, we can advise you, but the final decision is yours. Because when Cell is like to Alice, this isn't up for a vote, but if it was, you definitely wouldn't have a vote. Bree is like, what the nuh-uh? Like,
shut that up right now.
Lay off her.
Shut it down.
And she would
shut that
definitely
down
have
immediately.
A vote. Then she's.
It's also funny because they're technically on the same side.
Again, Bree and Arthur. So Cell has to shut down. Cell has to be like, ooh.
And Cell and Bree agree. But Bree is like, you're not gonna come for my girl.
You're not gonna come for my girl.
She's the reason we out. If it wasn't for her ass, you'd still be in that shadow hole with no decision-making power. So
don't let your cranky go too far now, sir. I'm amused sometimes, but right now, no. Not. So the next thing that happens is that when she's like, oh, it's just Big Bree moments, she makes a decision that, well, first off, Samira says, it's like we told you, Bree, we don't follow the order. It's a false kingdom. And I just love that the Black woman is like, that's false. That's not real. Let me claim there's a false kingdom over there. Don't get wrapped up in that. Designed by the Regents. We follow the Legendborn, ruled by a king. Crowned or not, that's you. And Bree starts to say, I'm not. And then Jill murmurs, line is law. And that just cements the fact that Bree ain't got another choice but to just live up, like pull up her big girl panties and be like, okay, I'm king. Let me just make a pronouncement. And of course, it's dramatic Cell, whose eyes are glittering, who says going into hiding to save your life or to go after Nick to save his. And Bree looks around again at everybody's faces and, still doesn't really help her. It's just, cements of it. Again, she has to make a decision. So she decides she wants to go after Nick. And of course, Cell smirks. And I'm like, Cell has an obvious bias towards Nick in the plan to save Nick. And I don't think that she doesn't really interrogate the reasoning behind why she and Cell are so wrapped up in wanting to go for Nick. Like, is it the thing about Bree is, does she care about rationale and a plan? And that's what bothers me about Bree as the main character. Because it's like, all the main characters have that energy. I'm like, so we're just not going to consider the fact that maybe something that you're putting into it, like maybe if you're a little too pent up about it, it's not a good idea for you to do it because you're not in a place where you can sit back and be smart. You're gonna put yourself in a place of weakness possibly if you don't pull it together. And I don't like that Cell, who's supposed to be, who has as much intelligence about the order and and I'm talking about background, CIA intelligence or whatever about the order and how it moves and stuff, and should be, yes, he's owed to Nick and he has reasons why he needs to be in Nick's proximity in order to maintain his sanity. Why he's not at least being thoughtful towards like, oh shoot, like I'm over here really waking up Bruce's face because I'm really torn up about Nick right now, and I probably should sit back right now in this moment because Bree needs to be able to pull this together without my influence. Like he's just just immediately go for Nick. And it smirks when Bree says, like, it's like, I don't like it. I don't like this whole like situation right here.
I think so. That's so human of when you are actually, and especially men. Ooh, it's men and boys, whatever. When you are very emotional, but you have tricked yourself into believing that it is the logical and the only choice, when actually it's like, no, you're just you're being ruled off of your emotions right now. But they're so deep in their emotions that it feels rational. And I get that you don't like it. I don't like it either, but it's also like, you know how many times I look back at stuff that I've done or things I've gotten myself into and said, if I would have just thought this through, if I would have took a step, if I would have said, you know what, let me think about this for a second, and then I would have gone to someone else and like bounced off of them, I would have, but in the moment, it was the only way. It was clearly the only option. And so, yeah, I don't like it, but it's the most realistic thing to me.
Boo. Anyway, so like they decide, okay, this is our plan of course of action. Let's prepare. The lead just told them to get into battle stations, which is go to sleep. And as this is happening, William, who's already sitting there with his head in his hands, already like they've been clued into the fact that this man is not as put together as we think, not just because of his time at the Institute and the trauma of that, but also because of the agony that he's going through right now because of the broken oath. He also has like, even through and that's why I really feel for William. Through all that man had Bree's best case scenario in head, was pulling for her to make a better decision, and she's like, "Nah, we're gonna go after Nick." So he's like, "Well, now I gotta go sleep everything off because I can't. Like, I gotta get out of here." So he bounces and goes into a separate cabin, and Bree starts to follow him, and Jill says, "Nah, like let him be." And I think this is the reason why I can't. Another reason I'm really stuck about this part with like Cell and Bree making this stupid decision, and why I feel like it's a stupid decision, is because the last time Bree spoke to Nick Davis himself, he told her, "Don't save me. I don't want to be saved." He told her point blank, "Don't come try to save me. The thing is, I don't want to be saved."
Is him saying that got cut off by Lancelot, so Bree can just pretend she did not see. I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying she's right. I'm just saying
the Nick.
He didn't get to finish his whole rationale for it, Nick, and then she was locked up. She could easily that could. She could easily forget about that.
Nick Damsel Davis
he said no.
Told you,
but he didn't give no real reason. She's like, I don't know. He probably didn't mean it for real.
But I hear you.
No, I'm completely.
But the damsel,
they're definitely tripping.
The damsel said, "I don't want to be saved. Don't save me."
Yeah.
You don't think maybe there's a trap or something? Because I'm always looking for traps, I guess. I was talking to Darren about this the other day. I wasn't talking to him about it. He observed this about me. He was like, or women. He was like, women are always looking out for the setup. And I'm like, because there's always a setup. And he's like, no, but you're always looking because there's always this one. Like, but. So yeah. I also recognize in this moment that Bree too is traumatized by her experience at the Institute. Because in this moment, and when they're all going off to their, resting stations, Alice grabs Bree and is like, "Hey, I got you some stuff. The standard, tools and things you need when you're on a trip, change of clothes, tampons, pads, hair stuff from the black product aisle because I know what's going on with these hotel products or whatever. And it makes them laugh, and it reminds her of like sleepovers at Alice's house and like childhood. And there is something extremely soothing about being reminded of your childhood after being forced to adult, because after the first couple of times of adulting, you're like, oh, let me lean into nostalgia. Where's the last time I watched a cartoon?
Come on.
Can I get some Slurpee?
Some old music,
Can I find
something.
some ice creams? I just need.
Yeah, and I also
something.
appreciate. It's like also one of the main reasons I appreciate Alice being here. Is like everything is new, right? Like Bree is just being thrust into one brand new, highly dangerous situation into the next. Like it just keeps going for her, and so having Alice there, while Alice is also having to deal with those things, it just is able to keep Bree a little more grounded in like who she is, because she has someone who knows her and like she's following some of the rules, right? She's like, yeah, you are Crown Scion, so you do deserve like, to the decision making and whatever. But it's also just remembering like, you're like, she calls her Maddie like immediately. She's just like, so it just brings her back to like center in a way that I think is really important, especially after all the trauma she's gone through in the last like couple chapters. So yeah,
it's also important to have someone, even though like Alice can't see everything and all of the magic and stuff, it's also like really important sometimes to have someone that you can look at and be like, that shit was wild, wasn't it?
Right.
Like,
because everyone else is like, even though like none of this was really maybe what William expected. I know Cell, he's got contingencies on top of contingencies, but like, or at least he thinks he does. But it just kind of, even still, they're still I guess
they're jaded a little bit to a lot of this as well.
Yeah, like they're used to some of it. And even in the parts where they're being betrayed, like they still believe in some of the systems and understand how they work at the very least.
And I think it's hard for them to understand even just Bree's hesitance of like claiming and internalizing the fact that she's Arthur, or the Scion of Arthur. Like every time she's like, but I just became, and they're like, you are always Arthur. She's like,
yeah,
no.
Do I have his face? Really? Are you sure about that?
And they're like, no. Just accept that now.
You
we
just
didn't know
it,
but
None
it was always there. Just move on. We move.
Now we
move.
She's like, I'm still stuck
the
on
blood.
this.
Did you always? Have you always bled? Because you've always bled. You've always had Arthur. That's how deep. That's how.
And she needs someone like Alice to be like, remember when I wasn't Arthur? Yeah, girl, I remember when you wasn't Arthur. It was good. Damn, let's go back.
Literally.
Yeah, I feel like that makes Alice Mufasa. Like, remember
who you are.
Literally.
And so, yeah, clearly all this trauma is making all of Bree's emotions swing around, because one minute she's giggling and like pulling it together with Alice, and the next minute she is falling into Alice's arms sobbing. So the girl, everybody needs trauma everywhere. Break. Trauma under the chair, the car, everybody.
I just want to shout out William, who is the only one that did a trauma nap. And I just, you know what? When
Cell just woke up from a concussion,
and
so he probably he's like, I need to be up and moving.
And William, the healer, has actively tried to, like, hopefully he's getting a trauma nap. And Bree also succumbs to the darkness, getting her own trauma nap. And sadly for her, she can't get a break, because even in her subconscious, she does not have to herself, because right when she's knocked out, here comes Arthur, breaking into her dreams. With a memory.
It's because she was holding on to the dragon.
A traumatic, not even like a a traumatic memory on top of the already traumatic brain.
Oh, dear. She ain't had a full cycle sleep.
No. In weeks at this point.
Aren't you tired? I'm tired for you.
The worst.
Yeah, Arthur deserves nothing. Take all of Bree's suffering, double it, and give it to Arthur.
Yes.
Ooh, I wish he could die again.
May he most of the time I want people to step on Legos. I want a boulder to fall on his foot.
Bring him back to corporeal life so I can behead that man.
Mm-hmm.
Kill him again. Get him for me.
Let's describe this trauma dream, shall we, of Arthur? So, like, was it traumatic to Arthur when he lived it? Sure. But why is he bringing it to Bree right now?
What does she got to do with this?
What? So this white man and his buddies run a battlefield, right? And it's Camlon, the first one, the original, extra crispy. And they open the gate.
Oh my God.
I'm too acclimated to dragon shows where battles automatically mean crispy bodies. I'm sorry. So this white man and his friends are on the field and they decide they're going to open one of the demon gates. What do they open it to? Oh, fantastic. It's a massacre because all the demons are just waiting to chow down. And
they were trying to take the fight to wherever the demon realm is.
The demons
and the demon said, "Welcome."
Right. We out here. We were ready.
Right this way.
That was so dumb. It was only 150 of them. It was 150 human soldiers. And this is before they tied their... It's before they did the spell. So yeah, you thought 150 of y'all
the whole
were going to go into the demon realm
is on the ground.
And what did you think you were going to do?
They thought, because they're big and bad, mighty round table with Merlin over here throwing around Excalibur quotes, they thought, we're gonna come through, we ain't never gonna worry about the shadow demons ever again. The Shadowverse, we got it. Nah. So they go from 150 to 83 because 67 people are dead by the end of the night.
It's not funny.
Just hanging out, laying out.
I also want to say, we haven't yet gotten really like the origins of this battle of like how this fight started. But them going to open a gate to go into the shadow realm to kill demons is some colonizer shit. Yeah. And again, I don't know.
This started because they left something. They were white man sciencing, but it was medieval science.
And they saw it and said, "Ooh, I mess with this. What's up in here?"
They're like, "I'm holding the power of Christ compels you in my pocket, so of course the demons are gonna just go. They're gonna flee as soon as that."
It just sounds. We haven't gotten the full like backstory yet, but I'm very curious about where Tracy is going with that.
We do know who to blame. We know because here comes Lancelot confronting Arthur about him leading all these people into becoming victims of demon murder sprees. And each time it's with a new strategy. He's like, so we're just gonna write this off and then go into your next strategy, huh? Like, so you're just gonna clearly they are where they are because Arthur was like, the last strategy I did didn't work, but guess what? I got a new one. They've done this enough times for Lancelot to be like, oh, so you're just gonna write this off as okay, so that went bad. Oh, that's my bad, y'all. I got a new strategy coming up tomorrow. Like, really?
I will say, like, like there is a I think there's a moment after this where Lancelot's like, "Oh, do you even know their names or whatever?" And Arthur's like, "I feel every one of them," and it's very dramatic.
That sounds good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think he does mean that literally. Like they don't have the what's it called oaths, but they do have the maybe it's the warrior's oath. One of them. They're all bound to Arthur. But like again, I just want to know how this war started. I don't think that particular moment was the start of the battle. Some stuff had obviously happened before that, but I just it frames it in a way that feels like the round table was more on the antagonizing side, which is what we've kind of seen this whole time. So it would make sense. if we get to the end and it's like, oh
I
no,
will
y'all were the
also-
baddies the whole
I will
time.
also say-
their behavior. It's like
As-
does that sound like the demons were ready for them in a way that's like, what kind of colonizer behavior
Were you on before?
doing? Were y'all losing
Yeah,
the demon
it's just
realm or
it's
something
yeah.
before?
It's given y'all were the bad, y'all been baddies the whole time, and not like you were good and then you
lost your way.
Yeah.
I will say this. This is one of those scenes where I do like, you know, like royal stories or whatever, but I always get stuck on this because like the king does some dumb shit. And I'm like,
and then everybody else gotta do something about it.
Why is this motherfucker like we already seen now? Like Lancelot, you making points now. Off with this motherfucker's head, and let's try somebody else. Can we get in a boat? Like, why are we going?
That's his best friend
And
or whatever, you know.
I don't care if my best
Well,
friend.
you know that they have the whole divine right of kings
There's
thing.
that.
They're like, well, he's
He's
the
chosen.
God
dude,
on
yeah.
earth. We can't just
And
anything he says has to be the holiest of things to do.
And that's why I know that I am a modern ass motherfucker, but like I just couldn't.
But also, I have never heard of West African or any African beliefs that had any before.
There are kingdoms. I don't know if they're in West Africa.
But like,
Africa,
we just follow
like,
one man because the
yeah.
God chose him.
Oh, I don't know if it's God chosen, but we do have like monarchy.
Yes, that I'm like, because God chose him?
I don't know about the God chosen. Yeah, you're right. I don't know, but I do know. I just know. This is what I do know. I don't care who chose you. If we done lost 100 people, and I come in and I'm like, oh, it's just off to the next harebrained scheme. Lancelot never once says, I could take Excalibur and shank him right now, and we can figure something else out. They're in love. I mean, sure. If I have a best friend, and I'm you know me, I'm not really ride or die. I'm not gonna kill my best friend, but I am gonna
sit him down
take
and have
the
a
car
talk.
keys. But you know when you like your friend are like, oh, we about to go out, we gonna have whatever, we gonna go somewhere, and at some point in the night you gotta snatch some car keys and be like, I'm in charge. I'm the captain now. Okay, you go sit over here and drink some water and sober up, and somebody else gonna make the decision. It's or if it's me, it's time to go home.
Yeah,
you've had your fun. We're done now. It's time to go home. And I just feel like Lancelot should have Arthur.
And you know how you can feel every single one of those pledges, Arthur? Let's talk about that.
Let's go sit. I feel like y'all went too far.
It's time to take a nap.
So let's go.
Yeah.
So part of that, like Arthur feeling the things, led me to a question about: does that mean that Bree, when she is fully activated, will then feel when everyone who's part of the order, like?
I think if she does the oaths, I think that if she had actually done the Rite of Kings, she at least would have felt the scions.
I feel like from the way that it's described, it's like, because it's like 67 people that are not like all roundtable.
No, I know,
like,
but I'm saying
members.
This is before, you know, they have like 1,000 different oaths. So I think it just depends on which oath she does. So like
I'm saying, but is this like precedent for us finding out like when like she'll feel like we just learned about the, because like I'm thinking about the way that Tracy wrote it to you. We learn about the term for agony within the same chapter that we learned that Arthur had pledges to people, and whenever 67 of them died, he felt every one of them. Is Bree gonna be trauma bonded to? Yeah,
I feel like I'm not convinced that Bree is ever gonna actually take these oaths. So, in that sense, no. But if she did, then yes. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I wonder if there is something though where she doesn't take the oaths per se, like she doesn't do the ceremony and she doesn't say the words or whatever, but like just her experiences with Cell, Alice, William, and Nick kind of owes them to her anyway, just through.
No, I think they have to say the words.
Shared trauma.
They have to do the whole thing for them to be bound like that closely, which, you know, maybe she'll bind herself to Alice or something. Like I could see that. If she does end up going the route of like the way that they of like Scion, Squire, whatever.
Like the
I
order.
could see, yeah, if they'd go that way, I could see Alice being her Squire, but like I just kind of don't believe so far, we'll see. I just don't know that she's actually gonna do any of that.
I feel like it'd have to come out of force or necessity, and I could see Tracy putting that on the table of force or necessity to get that.
Yeah, maybe, but I also think because of the way I feel like I thought that at the beginning of Bloodmarked, but by the end, it felt like she had really like rejected like the system of it, which, and again, like you're saying, like anything could happen, right? We've got 2 more books, so like there are a lot of things that can and will happen between what we know and the end of the story. So maybe I hope she's put off making oaths after Oathbound, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking of Bree being put off, she's put off by the traumazine in front of her. And her consciousness cuts in, and she realizes that like the way that she's seeing this memory of Arthur's means that Arthur has channeled her into his memory in a way that like Vera's is different. So using, I love a good like data collection and then actualization based on it. So from her last time this happened to her, she was able to tap into Lancelot/Nick's connection. She's like, can I do that again? So she,
well, because doesn't Nick like kind of flicker first before?
Yeah, she decides
before she's like, wait a second, I can control this.
Yeah,
I don't think
he kind of appears like briefly, and then she's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. But at the same time, yeah, that's whenever her brain starts to regain consciousness. Yeah. So So when she uses that flash of Nick to her advantage by starting to reach out towards, it sounds like it starts in slow motion. She's just like slowly reaching out to Lancelot. And then when she's finally able to like touch his armor, she just talks about like her fingertips touch his shoulder, the image flickers again rapidly, and her heart stutters, hoping. Lancelot flashes bright and becomes Nick once more, and he stares at her, eyes wide and searching, and asks, Bree?
Does he have to be asleep, or is he minding his business in
he's just
dungeon?
I think he's
not in the dungeon.
I think it's always sleep.
It's so funny. It's late though.
The boy is a damsel.
I'm pretty sure.
But I'm wondering, like, if she goes into a vision, if she takes like a nap, for example, in the middle of the day, and then she gets pulled into a vision, and she decides to pull Nick into Lancelot. Does he just like
even if he's conscious?
Yeah.
Already?
Does he just crumple somewhere? Does he just?
I think it's both of them sleep. I think they both. Because
But it's also, I do appreciate, and like most of this is in the next chapter, but just like even, I mean, honestly, it's part of this too. It's like the way that she calls him, like she's not assuming because the first time it happened that she can do it this time because the situations were different. Like she was in the you know what I mean? The Right of Kings or whatever when it happened the first time, and they got cut short, and then a bunch of other shit happened. So it also makes sense that they're both still like, they're both not like, oh, hey, what's up? They're like, oh, this is real. Like this. We can actually do this.
This is
interesting.
Consistent.
Okay, cool.
That wasn't a
right, like or a dream.
Okay.
Like that wasn't. I didn't just make that up in my head. And it makes a lot of sense for her to call him at this moment when. I mean, pretty much every time she calls him. He
already told you he don't want to be saved.
Well, it's that, but it's like,
you know what? Let's get it again.
And not even that part of it, like partly that, but also the like pretty much anytime Bree feels not. Like unsure, not really in control, not really, or even like not even not in control, because technically she is. She just doesn't want to
doesn't feel that way.
Or doesn't feel it. But like anytime that happens, those are moments when she wants to speak to Nick, and so that's eventually like as she goes, she realizes she can. But that's like her in this case is kind of her subconscious kind of reaching out to him, because she goes to sleep with the the Pendragon like coin in her hand. So yeah,
which is hilarious that it's still Nick's Pendragon coin
because she don't want nothing to do with that man, Arthur.
But also technically, like that ain't coming down her family line. She don't know the origin point of that the coin. Nick is the origin point for that coin to her. She doesn't know the like history behind it.
I know, but
okay, we should say who's our MVP.
I gave my MVP to like the loyal Legendborn is how I called it, with like a capital loyal Legendborn. I think it's one thing to be brought into this cult or to grow up in this cult and reject it the way that we kind of saw Nick do, which is like to just pretend like none of this is happening and it doesn't exist. And then it's another thing to like see the flaws, recognize the flaws, and work in whichever capacity you can to like mitigate and work around and help and actually help people. And so I think like Samira, Gillian, Jillian, Lissa, Ophelia, Lark, the lieges that are watching Bree's dad, like all of them who are in differing levels could walk away. I don't think Lark could walk away right now or whatever, but like, or could just bury their heads in the sand or whatever, kind of putting themselves on the line. And partially it's like for Bree, but you get the sense that like, not that this would have happened to any other like Arthur or whatever, but like the line is law and like the stuff that they actually believe in, like the lore and all of the stuff, but they also keep the stated purpose of like helping mankind forefront in their mind and live that every day. And so that's why I give it to them.
I give it similarly to, I call it Bree's Liege Crew, but specifically the planners. And I just geeked out about the planning within the episode. So if you want to hear like exactly why, that was why. But I do really appreciate that, like the timeliness of it and the like level of thought that they were, because like they're within the ranks. It's not like they were within the ranks of the order this whole time looking for a reason to pop out and be there for the true king. They didn't know there was a true king to be looking out for, but as soon as they found out about the dynamic of there being someone and the regents doing what they were doing, they're like, absolutely not. Let's square up. And they knew who to contact within the order to not be leaking it out that they were going to go against the false kingdom. So that's a lot of strategy and understanding and building and specifically within a network that already exists, like undercurrents to that. And I appreciate that when they were able to assemble, it was not even like, again, there's no preparation for this, everything to be completely false in this way. Like that, like Arthur not being like the regents themselves weren't prepared for Arthur to not be Arthur. And I appreciate that they, like, when the call came, they were immediately there. So for all the planning things, plus that.
She said sometimes you got to pop out and show.
My MVPs, Regents. I said Alice and Samira. Alice, I already kind of talked about that. Just like her kind of being an anchor for Bree. Both like one, like she called the Avengers, okay? Like she was like, nope, she didn't just say, oh, the thing didn't take and I'm gonna just
happy Hogan.
Yeah, she wasn't like, oh, I'm they think I'm safe and I'm gonna just keep going to class. She was like, no, Bree's in danger. I'm about to do what to do. But then also like make, just always having Bree's back in this wild ass situation. And both in like the big ways and then in the small ways of like making sure she has the shampoo she needs for her hair. And then Samira, I think I just like her. Her whole like attitude is hilarious to me. And
that introduction of her, like whenever Bree was like, so you're the one who's telling me to do all those things. And Jill was like, yeah, sorry, it was so hard. And Samira was like, I thought she could handle it. I was sure she could handle it. I'm like, don't worry. I wasn't worried at all. Like rub some dirt in it. You'll be okay.
Exactly.
Kid.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And then also just like the fact that it's like, again, Bree is not the only one here, right? There are other people for her to whose experiences that she shares, right? And it kind of gives her, I think, a little bit more context into the order as well, that like you're not the first. You're the first Scion of Arthur, Black Scion of Arthur for sure, but like there are other people around who had to deal with some of these things.
Scion period, which is
yeah.
a whole other
Right.
level of the racism of the
Right.
cult,
But it's just like giving that kind of like, I guess adding more texture to that is, I think, something that I really appreciated about this book in general. But also Samira just is like a cool character. So and you know, she is one of the planners and also I think sees the order more clearly than some of the other lieges do because of her positionality and like her race. So yeah.
And also she came up with the sonic boom.
Yeah.
Which is as distractions go.
It was pretty lit.
Pretty great.
Bench.
And then planned just the levels of that planning.
Yeah.
I had to bench the Regent. I mean, I'm just gonna they just gotta be benched until they can't be benched no more, which I don't know when that is. Like
until exploding a sonic boom takes them all out of the story, and
you know,
we don't hear about them.
until the Demon King decides to really start Demon Kinging, I guess. I don't know, but for a while now, it's just going to be them because, like, it just doesn't have to be this way. Like we have factions upon factions upon factions because y'all refuse to just do right by the people. And I mean, I guess the foundations of this entire order are fucked because Arthur sucks and Merlin sucks and they all suck. But like at some point, like you said, we all could have just acknowledged and like this is, I don't know. They could have done better.
Yeah.
Same. Also, the Regents benched them for similar reasons. All the things that are bad that are happening in Bree's life physically are because of them, for the most part. But also, I gotta give a nice little one to Arthur because he gave Bree a nice little trauma dream. For what reason? So you can give her trauma dreams, Arthur, but you can't give her backup magical support when she needs it. So your priorities are really screwed up, and the person who's allowing you to have any access to the physical realm is the person you're gonna F with and give them trauma experience on top of the trauma that they've already had to live through while they were awake. So now in her mind, she has no rest. And I don't F with Arthur for that. Is she able to use it to her uses? Sure. But that's because she's adapting to her situation. Arthur
he can choke.
Needs to go.
I benched the Mage Guard, obviously minus Lark. And really because of Lark. Like it kind of like underscores
shows
like what they're supposed to be doing, and like if they were actually like doing their job, which is to guard the crown scion, and actually took that seriously versus following Erebus and like what the regents are saying, like that's their actual job. And on top of the fact, like we've seen like Max and then with the other one of Ramirez like actually hurt her. Right, so it's like
it's funny because it's like part of you, it's like you want to applaud Lark, but then you're like, nah, you did. You're doing what you're supposed to do.
So I think so. It's not like I was like Lark did what he was supposed to do. So I mess with him for that. But in this case, it's more like he's just highlighting how the Mage Guard are not doing what they're supposed to do, and like ultimately that is on the Regents. But I just in this case. In this particular one,
but it's possible to take those oaths and hold on to them because Lark is doing it.
Him doing what he's supposed to do kind of highlights that they're not on shit.
I'm just gonna say that I think that's something that I love that's consistent I find about Black folk in general and sometimes other POC is that we love competence. Like, you do your job. Just do your job. And we will F with you. Because when I know your role and we laid it out between each other, like what your role is, and you do what you say you're going to do and what your role says you're supposed to do, then we can F with each other because I can trust you to always do your job. And that's what Larkin gets. And it's like, the Mage Guard, if you were simply to just do your actual job and not your fake job, then we wouldn't have any problems. We can actually appreciate you as people because you did your job.
I think one thing too with Lark is like it just highlights the fact that like it's possible to do your job.
Mhm.
It's possible to be in this awful order and all this happening around you and all this corruption and stuff and still like walk it like you talk it. Lark's doing it. You can too.
Thank you for listening. Join us next week when we discuss chapters 22 through 24.
Wither Team is a part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com. Follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wither Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create.
Bye, y'all.
See you next week.